Season it's what it
Kill somebody.
Don't make somebody good excuse if you want one.
People.
Chris does too. Okay, folks, it is 9:05. I'm JD Solomon, and I'll call the May meeting of the Environmental Management Commission to order. Let me get the call to order done here with the conflict of interest statement. North Carolina General Statute 138A-15 mandates at the beginning of any meeting of a board, the chair shall remind all members of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest under this subchapter. The chair shall also inquire as to whether there is any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board at this time. Do we have any known or even potential conflicts at this time? Seeing nothing in the affirmative, I will say there are none. Also with council, I think we're missing Commissioner Gibson today, but we have all other commissioners present. Commissioner Bailey is out as well. So we do have a quorum, so we can proceed on. Some adjustments to the agenda, only one that I have, and that is on the information item for the Western North Carolina Fire Hazard Update. That will be postponed until July. Ironically, and maybe appropriately, they're out fighting fires today. So they could not be here today to be that, but they'll be back in July. So no other adjustments to the agenda that I have at this point. Any other adjustments? Okay, hearing none. That'll be fine. Let me make a comment about some stuff in the Water Quality Committee yesterday. Committee was slated to take up action on the monitoring and minimization plans for PFAS, PFOA, Gen X, and 1,4-dioxane. That was a charge that I had given both the committee and the department that we had made some commitments last fall. And I would like to have seen those rules in March and certainly by May, and they did their best, but they couldn't get them there. Mainly because of the regulatory impact analysis. A comment would be off the top. We have seen the same issue on both of these when they were brought to us as numeric standards. And we now see them as simply monitoring and minimization, which should be a lighter cost lift than those. The problem we're having, and Commissioner Ellison had this right yesterday, is we don't have the resource economists that have been part of this, and we can't get the cost benefit right. So that is a common theme, regardless of what we did last year or what we're doing this year. We have to get the cost benefit right. And so some of the things that Commissioner Ellison said would probably be taken a little strong, but I think he was passionate, and we do need that person or that team to help us with this aspect, because it is a common theme between the two, that we've got to do a better job to get it over the goal line, both OSBM and this commission. So we'll be working on that in July. I do know Commissioner King, Chairman King of that committee, was frustrated. I think he stayed on the positives, much more positive yesterday with everybody's hard work. And I think Director Rogers was the same way. And I will say everybody did work hard. But again, praise be there. And I know you felt bad as the chairman that didn't get over the goal line yesterday. But it was what it was, and we just have to resolve to come back in July with the physical notes in place and have those debates and whatnot. So that's what I'm looking for commission and the department to pledge to have those things done in July. And it's really three reasons. One is this is a big issue to the public. We have a duty to the public, the EMC and the department, to get these out for public comment. All the loose talk and all the things really don't matter till we have a rule on the table to have comments on, and we need to get this out to the public. I really wanted it done in March or May because we have a turnover in commissioner that's going to happen. I don't know how many or who, but it always happens. And I really wanted, with the journey we've had over the last year, that commissioners that have been through this will be able to give their comments and input. So having that debate in May was a good time, but we lost that. So that's number two. And then number three, we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. We are continuing to work on numeric standards. We had that in the motion last fall, especially on PFAS last year, on PFAS, PFOA, and Gen X. So we're still doing that. There's been a change in the federal administration. There are lawsuits out there. There are decisions that have to be made as to whether the current administration will even defend what the previous administration even did. So there's a lot of uncertainty still in numeric standards. The science is getting resolved better, but we've always known that. And we knew the drinking water standards, which again, I remind everybody, the drinking water MCLs are not the purview of the EMC. Protecting the public on the drinking water side is the Commission on Public Health. And so as they look at those issues, we have to look at our corresponding issues in groundwater and surface water, and we are. But there is a lot to get worked out. But those drinking water standards still don't take effect till 2028 to 2030. And the lawsuits on those make them be longer. And so while all that's happening, we have an opportunity with one thing we can agree on, I think almost unanimously as a commission, on monitoring and minimization or elimination at the industrial sources. And I think that's where we're heading, and we need to get on that stick as quick as possible. And I think we have a super majority of commissioners that are committed to that. So hopefully in July, we will see that happen, and then we will see our continued work on the numeric standards keep going forward. Commissioner Reardon and I talked about some of that yesterday, and so we will be moving on that now that we've had the new administration in for 6 months. We will be moving on that now with the timing being what it is. So I just wanted to say that. I think it's concerning, but it's also a direction we're moving down and committed to, and we're going to do that as a commission. So Commissioner Ellison, I mentioned your name. Commissioner Keen, anything you guys want to add? Have I said what needed to be said?
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, so approval of draft minutes. We did our best to get, I know, I'll just say this, we did our best to get 47 pages consolidated and shortened. Yeoman's work over here, I think he was doing some of that during a trial. I'm not sure Chris, our vice chair, was or not, but we tried to get it down. Lois did not post those till 2 days ago. I wanted to see if we could scan those in the last couple of days and get you to approve them. I know Commissioner Carter has a motion he wants to make because there's parts in there he wants to get straightened out. There may be others. Commissioner Carter, I'll give the floor to you on the minutes and recognize a motion if you have one at this time.
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I praise the class staff. When I saw 47 pages, my mouth dropped open. But I suspect there's some recording issues in trying to transcribe that. But the reason I came to you is I had made some extensive comments at the end of the meeting, and they're kind of jumbled up, and they need some punctuation, some correction. There's some words in there I don't even know. I don't think I spoke them. So I'm working on an edit to that, and I want to submit that for correction. We can't do that today, so my motion is to defer the March minutes until the July meeting.
Have a second. Commissioner Yarborough has a second. Discussion on the motion to defer the approval of minutes to the July meeting. Any discussion?
I'll just apologize for getting those to you all so late. I was a little bit behind in some work, but get those taken care of. But hopefully we get them approved next week or next meeting.
Okay. So hearing no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, we'll move on to action items at this point. Number 1, 25-17, request for approval to proceed to public comment and hearing on proposed revisions to 15A NCAC 02D.1904. Air curtain incinerators. Stop there.
Hi, I am Anna Delahunt with the DAQ, and today I am presenting on revisions to 15A NCAC 02D.1904 air curtain incinerators and 15A NCAC 02Q 810 air curtain burners. And just to note, we use air curtain incinerators and air curtain burners interchangeably throughout this presentation. 1904 used to say air curtain burners, and it was changed, and we're changing air curtain burners in 810 to air curtain incinerators in this rulemaking. Here are some acronyms and abbreviations throughout the presentation, just for reference. So some background on Rule 1904. It sets conditions for the operation of air curtain incinerators, or ACIs, including applicability, permitting, opacity limitations, performance tests, and record-keeping requirements. So the existing rule requires Title V permits for all ACIs, except for some temporary use ACIs using disaster recovery. The rule was originally adopted and became effective on July 1st, 1996, to set requirements for air curtain burners. At that time, burners that had the potential to burn 15,000 tons of material or more per year were subject to Section 15A NCAC 02Q 500 Title V procedures. The EPA promulgated federal source performance standards and emission guidelines for commercial and industrial solid waste incineration, or SISWI units, in 40 CFR Part 60, subparts Quad C and Quad D, respectively, on December 1st, 2000. These federal rules required all SISWI units to obtain and hold Title V permits, and the EPA clarified this also applied to SISWI ACIs. On December 16, 2005, the EPA promulgated federal NSPS and EGs for OSWI units, other solid waste incineration units under 40 CFR Part 60, subparts Quad E and Quad F, which required all OSWI units, including OSWI ACIs, to obtain and hold Title V permits. Under subparts Quad E and Quad F, certain ACIs are only subject to a small subset of the requirements, and these are termed OSWI ACIs for the purposes of this analysis. These OSWI ACIs include ACIs with a capacity of less than 35 tons per day that burn only the materials listed below, which are 100% wood waste, 100% clean lumber, 100% yard waste, or 100% mixture of these materials. They're collected from the general public and from residential, commercial, institutional, and industrial sources. And ACIs located at institutional facilities that burn any amount of also these materials when those materials are generated at that institutional facility. So this flowchart just helps to further explain the definition of OSWI ACIs. And because the NSPS and EG requirements are nearly identical, they are incorporated into the rule together. Similarly, the federal SISWI regulations, subparts Quad C and Quad D, carve out a subset of requirements for certain ACIs covered under those rules, and these ACIs are termed SISWI ACIs for the purposes of this analysis. A SISWI ACI is an ACI with a capacity of greater than or equal to 35 tons per day that burns only 100% wood waste, 100% clean lumber, or 100% mixture of only wood waste, clean lumber, and yard waste. So this is another flowchart that further explains what a SISWI ACI is. Amendments to Rule 02D 1904, effective on August 4, 2004, increased the threshold for facilities needing a Title V permit from 15,000 tons per day to 77,000 tons per day. The readoption of 1904 on September 1, 2019, updated the rule to align with the federal rules for SISWI and OSWI ACIs, and require that all new and existing ACIs obtain a Title V General Operating Permit pursuant to 509 for permanent ACIs or 510 for temporary ACIs. On August 31st, 2020, the EPA performed a 5-year review of the NSPS and EG for OSWI units. Following this review, the EPA proposed changes to the NSPS and EGs for OSWI units, including removing the Title V permit requirement for OSWI ACIs. On April 17, 2024, the EPA finalized the elimination of the Title V permit requirement for OSWI ACIs. Now, these ACIs must not be located at Title V major sources or be otherwise subject to Title V permit requirements, and they must also continue complying with opacity limitations. The DAQ is proposing to amend 1904 by removing the Title V permit requirement for OSWI ACIs. Additionally, DAQ is proposing clarifying changes to the monitoring, record-keeping, and reporting provisions based on comments from DAQ staff. On October 10, 2024, the General Assembly passed House Bill 149, also known as the Disaster Recovery Act of 2024, in response to Hurricane Helene. Section 10.5C of the Act stated that owners and operators of permanent and temporary ACIs subject to 40 CFR Part 60, subparts Quad E and Quad F, shall not be required to obtain a Title V operating permit. This change applies to OSWI ACIs and is consistent with the EPA's final action to revise the federal OSWI rules in April of 2024. Section 10.5D of the Act requires that the EMC amend Rule 02D 1904 to be consistent with Section 10.5C, which will be in effect until the revised permanent rule is effective. Since Section 10.5 of the Act is already in effect, it's considered part of the baseline or business as usual operations for purposes of this analysis. So the costs and savings in this fiscal note are attributable to the Disaster Recovery Act of 2024 rather than this rulemaking. On November 21st, 2024, the EPA issued a no action assurance for the use of ACIs to manage debris caused by Hurricane Helene. The NAA allowed the use of new ACIs with capacities greater than 35 tons per day in North Carolina without the owner or operator first obtaining a Title V permit pursuant to 40 CFR 60.2242. The NAA was granted through March 1st, 2025. The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality sent a letter to the EPA requesting an extension of the NAA on February 28, 2025. And on March 12th, the EPA granted a 6-month extension to September 1st, 2025. So until EPA action is taken to remove the Title V permit requirement for CISWE ACIs, such provisions will remain in Rule 1904. So here is a summary of the rule amendments that we're making to Rule 02D 1904. We're revising applicability language, revising definitions for temporary air current incinerators and temporary use air current incinerator used in disaster recovery, refining the particulate types for PSC increment, adding requirements for managing ash, revising permit requirements to be consistent with 40 CFR Part 60, subparts Quad E and Quad F, revising opacity limits to distinguish requirements for OSWE and CISWE ACIs and to be consistent with 40 CFR Part 60, subparts Quad E and Quad F, adding requirements to notify DAQ of startup within 15 days of commencing operation, adding requirements to keep daily logs, and added the session law to the authority section of the history note as discussed at the AQC. So the other rule we are amending is 02Q 810 air curtain burners. The rules in 15A and CAC 02Q 800, termed the exclusionary rules, provide that certain types of facilities can be excluded from the Title V permitting requirements in Rule 02Q 500 if their actual annual throughput or production rate remains below the threshold or exclusionary limit established in the 02Q 800 rule applicable to that industry. The exclusionary limits in each of the 02Q 800 rules are calculated as the highest throughputs that a facility could have while keeping emissions below the Title V major source thresholds. These thresholds are 100 tons per year of each criteria pollutant, 10 tons per year of individual hazardous air pollutant, and 25 tons per year of all hazardous air pollutants combined. So this, the change in 810 will only impact CISWE ACIs, as I will get more into later. Rule 02Q 810 was originally adopted and became effective on December 1st, 2005, and exempted facilities with only air curtain burners combusting less than 8,100 tons of land clearing debris per year from the Title V permit requirement. The 8,100 tons per year limit was calculated to correspond to the major source threshold of 100 tons per year of a criteria pollutant using an emission factor of 12.23 grams particulate matter emissions per kilogram of land clearing debris burned, meaning 24.46 pounds particulate matter per ton burned. This emission factor was derived from the October 1996 EPA study. So DAQ is proposing to modify the exclusionary limit in 15A and CAC 02Q 810 to reflect updated emission factors and clarify that it does not supersede the permit requirements of Rule 02D 1904. The proposed revisions to Rule 02Q 810 include recalculating the Title V exclusionary limit that exempts ACIs from the Title V permit requirements in 15A and CAC 02Q 500 using emission factors for ACI published by the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District in 2017. Limiting pollutant from the San Joaquin Air Pollution Control District, the limiting pollutant is carbon monoxide and has an emission factor of 26 pounds of carbon monoxide emitted per ton of material burned. So this factor raises the exclusionary limit to 76,000 tons of material burned per year. The emission factors are more representative of current ACIs and are used for permitting ACIs in North Carolina and other states. So to update how technology has improved since 1996, we are using a more up-to-date emission factor, and we are raising the exclusionary limit to make it less restrictive. All OSWE ACIs in North Carolina burn less than 35 tons per day of only wood waste, clean lumber, yard waste, or a mixture of these materials, which equals a maximum of 12,775 tons of material per year. Consequently, exclusionary Rule 02Q 810 would only apply to CISWE ACIs, which are still currently required to maintain a Title V permit. As a result, the proposed revisions to 810 would not change the current permitting requirements for any unit, but would serve as a sort of backstop in the event the EPA later removes a Title V permitting requirement for SISWI ACIs that burn only wood waste, clean lumber, yard waste, or a mixture of these materials. So to clarify this point, the rule is proposed to be modified to clarify it does not supersede the permitting requirements of Rule OTD 1904. So this is a summary of the amendments we're making or proposing to make to 810. So we replacing air curtain burners with air curtain incinerators, revising applicability so all sources at a site utilizing this rule, not just those sources requiring a permit, are limited to one or more ACIs. Increasing the exclusionary limit to account for updated emission factors, revising timelines to be clearer throughout the rule, revising permissible materials to be consistent with 40 CFR Part 60 subparts Quad E and Quad F, adding language to clarify the rule does not supersede 1904, and revising requirements to specify that the types of material combusted must be included in reports. So the fiscal note for this rulemaking was approved by the OSBM on March 3rd, 2025. Since the federal rules in 1904 currently require that all SISWI ACIs obtain a Title V permit regardless of annual emissions, the proposed changes to exclusionary Rule 02Q810 would not have any fiscal or environmental impact upon the rule changes becoming effective. Since the Disaster Recovery Act of 2024 serves as the baseline for this analysis, the removal of the Title V permitting requirement for OSWI ACIs in 1904 does not result in any impacts attributable to the proposed rule amendments. Despite that, the fiscal note characterizes and quantifies the estimated costs and savings to industry, local government, and state government associated with the change in the permitting requirements. So there are 18 facilities with OSWI ACIs that would no longer be required to obtain a Title V permit. They may need to obtain a construction and operation permit, commonly referred to as a non-Title V permit, state permit, or small permit, issued pursuant to the provisions of 15A NCAC 02Q 300. They do not qualify for one of the exemptions listed in 15A NCAC 02Q 102. Based on a review of emissions inventory data from these facilities over the last 3 years, one facility is anticipated to still need a small permit. While the remaining 17 OSWI ACI facilities appear to possibly qualify for an exemption, they may still choose to apply for and obtain a small permit. And a facility may want to obtain a small permit for a variety of reasons, such as to allow growth in future operations that may result in actual emissions greater than exemption thresholds. So due to this uncertainty, this analysis captures both scenarios, resulting in a range of estimated costs and savings. So fiscal impacts to the private sector and local government include savings in Title V annual permit fees, but additional costs in new small permit fees, savings in labor for activities related to Title V permits, but additional labor costs for activities related to new small permits. Fiscal impacts to the state include reduced revenue from Title V annual permit fees, additional revenue from new small permit fees, savings in labor for activities related to Title V permits, but additional labor costs for activities related to new small permits. This table summarizes the impacts to the private sector, local government, and state government for one small facility. In the scenario where we only had one facility maintain a small permit. So the net savings for the private sector are $123,982. Net savings for local government, $36,648. And net savings or net cost to the state government would be $22,586, resulting in a total savings to all entities of $138,044. So this scenario shows the impacts if all 18 facilities would attain a small permit, showing a savings of $17,025 to the private sector, a savings of $3,041 to local government, a cost of $70,742 to the state government, resulting in a total cost of $50,676. So the director recommends that the EMC authorize a public comment period and hearing on proposed rule amendments to 15A NCAC 02D 1904 and 15A NCAC 02Q 810 in the accompanying fiscal note, and for the chair to appoint a member of the EMC to serve as a hearing officer. One more thing to note is that pursuant to Section 10.5D of the Disaster Recovery Act, rules adopted pursuant to this section are not subject to Part 3 of Article 2A of Chapter 150B of the General Statutes, meaning Rules Review Commission review, and shall become effective as provided in General Statute 150B 21.3B1, as though 10 or more written objections have been received, as provided in General Statute 150B 21.3B2. So this rule will go to the next legislative session for review by the General Assembly. and pursuant to General Statute 150B 21.3B1, rules that go before the General Assembly will become effective on the earlier of the 31st legislative day or the day of adjournment of the next regular session of the General Assembly that begins at least 25 days after the date the Rules Review Commission approved the rule, unless a different effective date applies. So this rulemaking is not going to the Rules Review Commission, so it'll be one of the other two options. Now, this also only applies to Rule 1904. So as you see in the next two slides, we have two different timelines for 1904 and 810. So this is our tentative timeline for 1904. As you see, it doesn't go to the Rules Review Commission. This is our tentative timeline for 810. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for staff, Ms. Delahunt? Mr. Carter, any discussions from their quality committee or?
Yeah,
you
so
individual?
I wanted to mention, of course, we heard this in March. The committee unanimously approved it to come to the commission. One of the main things I want to mention, though, is yesterday at AQC, we had a presentation by Commissioner Yarborough on the carbonizer unit that they're using up in the western part of the state near Canton to dispose of downed timber up there. And part of the question that came up with respect to permitting and where that stands. Two things I guess I would comment on. One in particular, though, is something I was certainly not aware of, was that the agency, the DAQ, has done a general permit to allow that some of those units to be, or most of them, I guess, to even to be permitted through a general permitting process. Because as you probably all generally know, the Title V process can be long and very costly. So that's a real benefit. And also cutting out the general approach here to cut out Title V permitting to the extent it's possible under the statutes will be very beneficial. So I would say the committee strongly recommends taking this forward and really getting in place sooner rather than later.
Okay, very
And
good.
I'll be prepared to offer a motion when you're ready.
And I think the motion is much cleaner in the agenda than it is on the board here. So
Okay.
I'll do the one on the agenda. Question from Commissioner Baumgartner.
I don't know if this is for Anna or for Director Abrazinskis, but slide 12 talks about the no action assurance and that the department had petitioned EPA for an extension that lasted until, I guess there was 2 extensions. Is that correct? Or 1? But the next extension ends September 1, 2025. Knowing and hearing even yesterday that some folks in the mountains are having trouble meeting this deadline extension, does the department have any intentions on requesting EPA for an additional extension?
It's not something I know.
I figure it's above your pay grade, that's why.
Hey, everyone. I'm Taylor Hartsfield, Deputy Director for the Division of Air Quality. We have had discussions with EPA on this point. The other thing that we're also in discussion with EPA on is actually getting the SISWE rules changed. So depending on which comes first, we may not need that additional extension of the no action assurance.
Okay. The volume of material that dealing in the mountains, y'all know well.
Yes.
Anything we can do to help those folks out, I think would be.
Yep. And we've advocated from the beginning that this would be much longer than a 1-year process. So that message has been made loud and clear.
Yeah.
Taylor,
Thank
can you give us an update in July, please?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Yarborough.
Is it possible the commission would consider a letter to EPA directly? Because it's September 1, as I mentioned yesterday, it's rather doubtful that there'll even be any funding for some of this. So until then, so it's absolutely imperative that we get some kind of relief on that. It is a disaster and it's listed in there as no assurance. The other comment I would have on for these list incinerators, the biochar machine is a completely different thing. It's not a complete carbon burn. So I would entertain some kind of idea or thought process at some point to be able to ask the EPA what they think a carbonizer is or activated charcoal machine, because I think it's going to be completely different than that incinerator going all the way to ash. The intent of a biochar machine is actually to save the carbon, not to burn it. That's the only comment I have.
I'll be glad to review the letter from the department if they find it. If we think it appropriate, I can co-sign it from the EMC, but I'll at least review it with the department. I think they'll be fine with that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. We'll have a motion, Commissioner Carter.
Yes, sir. I would move that the commission approve this agenda item to go to public hearing on proposed revisions to 15A NCAC 2D.1904 air curtain incinerators and 15A NCAC 2Q.0810 air curtain burners and the fiscal note.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Commissioner Lyerly seconds. Any discussion on the motion among the commissioners? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 2, 2518 is request for approval to proceed to public comment on agency determination reports for periodic review of rules, and that's Ms. Burleson, I believe.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, you're great.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm Joelle Burleson with the Division of Air Quality's Planning Section. You've been through this process several times. I think we're the last division under the EMC's purview to do this, so I'll try to keep it brief. Acronyms that we might slip in, or that I might slip into during this presentation are provided on slide 2 for reference. This is the second round of periodic review that we'll be undergoing, and as you know, GS 150B 21.3A requires this to be conducted every 10 years. Our air quality rules were last reviewed by the EMC in 2015, and necessary rules were readopted between November 2017 and July of 2020. So the process consists of basically, for the report phase, the initial phase, 3 steps, and those are an agency, which is you guys review, where we prepare an initial determination report classifying all the rules as necessary or unnecessary. We hold a minimum 60-day public comment period on those initial determinations. Then we develop responses to comments we receive during that time frame, establish a final determination, submit those final agency reports to the Rules Review Commission. In step 2, the Rules Review Commission reviews our report and responses to comments, as well as the comments received, and prepares their final determination on the report, submits that to the Joint Legislative Administrative Procedures Oversight Committee, or APO. And APO then, in the third step, has a 60-day consultation period to review the final determination report before it becomes effective. Your air quality rules consist of 314 rules. They're found in 15A NCAC 02D and 15A NCAC 02Q. The subchapters are interrelated between the actual air pollution control requirements and then the permits procedures. And I just note that the majority of these rules are also federally required or approved under the Clean Air Act under various authorities such as Clean Air Act Section 110, state implementation plans, Section 111D emission guidelines are approved in North Carolina Title V program and other authorities. So identification that a rule is federally required doesn't necessarily preclude it from being repealed as part of the readoption process if warranted. However, we might have to undertake a demonstration that there wouldn't be any backsliding, such as a Clean Air Act Section 110L demonstration of non-interference with attainment or maintenance of a NAAQS, or National Ambient Air Quality Standard. So of the rules on the books in the code, only 313 of them will go through this review process because one of those 314 was the Title V insignificant research and development activity rule that you adopted last November, and that became effective in January, so it's not eligible for review until next round. In this instance, we've reviewed all the rules. We have determined all of them to be necessary. Necessary means any rule other than an unnecessary rule, and unnecessary is a rule that the agency determines to be obsolete, redundant, or otherwise not needed. We are here today in May. If this report is forwarded by the commission and approved, then we would hold a public comment period this summer, come back to you with determination, final form, and responses to comments for your approval in September, and then meet our submittal deadline of November 20th, 25 to the RRC in order to have them review the reports at their December 18th meeting this year. And when they complete their review in December, we would anticipate that they would make their submission to the Joint Legislative APO. And then in early 2026, the report would have the opportunity to become final. The next phase we would then come back to you for is readoption. During 2026, we would anticipate receiving our consultation requests from the RRC and work with their attorneys to establish a readoption deadline. We would have within the later of 60 days of receipt of that consultation request from RRC, or 10 days after the next regularly scheduled EMC meeting, in order to have those rulemaking priorities determined to be relevant in the readoption timeline. And then we would go through RRC to establish the actual readoption deadline, and EMC would complete rulemaking to readopt and submit the rules to OAH by whatever that deadline is determined to be. In round one, we requested and received a 4-year timeframe to adopt all these rules. In your materials, the agency initial determination report for the subchapter O2D rules was found in attachment A. Attachment B provided the report for subchapter O2Q rules, and we also provided in attachment C for your review the current rules that are in the code in these 2 subchapters. And with that, I would say the director recommends that the EMC approve the request to proceed to public comment with the periodic review of existing rules initial determination reports for 15A, NCAC, O2D, and O2Q.
Okay, questions for staff? Comments from the committee, the chair, vice chair, anything? Mr. Carter?
Yeah, and of course, this was also approved by the committee to come forward to the commission. One thing I just would note, because something I had not focused on before, pointed out to me the other day, is that we've done these periodic reviews in the past, but the process has now changed somewhat. If you recall, in the past, there was a 3-option process: change, don't change, or don't even mess with it. Now you don't have but 2 choices. So that's going to, I don't know if that's going to make things easier or harder, but I just wanted to point that out. It is different than what we've experienced in the past. And again, Mr. Chairman, when you're ready, I'm perfectly ready to go ahead with a motion.
Any other discussion, questions? Mr. Carter, you're ready.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the agenda item 2518 to proceed to public comment on the agency determination reports for periodic review of rules in 15A, NCAC 2D, and 2Q.
Vice Chair Lowerly gave me the second with his finger wiggle. Did you wiggle your finger? Okay, I thought you did. It's like
Thank you.
a bit or something under there. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion among commission on the motion? Hear none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Burleson, as always.
Well, I'm done. I guess I can leave now.
Similar exercise here, request approval for scheduled readoption as part of the periodic review for existing rules for 15A, NCAC, O2S. Ms. Monte.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Jessica Monte, Division of Waste Management. As mentioned, presenting the schedule for readoption for periodic review for subchapter O2S. O2S is the rules and criteria for the administration of the dry cleaning solvent cleanup fund, which is implemented by DWM's Superfund section DISCA program. So this is similar to what Ms. Burleson just presented, but we're in the next phase of the process. We've completed the rule review part and we're getting ready to start readoption, but we need to get the schedule for readoption approved by the RRC. So our rule review report, that necessary, unnecessary report, was approved by the EMC in November. The RRC approved that report in February, and on April 30th, that was the 61st day after receipt by the Administrative Procedures Oversight Committee at the General Assembly. So we've had the consultation with the RRC staff and are proposing our schedule. The schedule that I'm proposing today and the deadline were presented to the Groundwater and Waste Management Committee and approved in March. All of the rules in the subchapter were designated as necessary, so they'll all be going through the rule readoption process. Those are the final determinations. This is the proposed rule readoption schedule in a bit of detail. Over the next year, working on the RIA and the stakeholder meetings and drafting of the rule to come before the Groundwater and Waste Management Committee in May of 2026, and the rulemaking hopefully to be completed by July. And so here we are proposing the readoption schedule deadline of August 1st, 2027 for these rules. And to keep it short, DWM requests approval of the readoption schedule and deadline for O2S as presented. Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Monty? Commissioner Chair Baumgartner?
This is a standard readoption process that we reviewed in the Groundwater Waste Management Committee. There were no issues in committee that I can remember, so I'll be ready to make a motion at your direction.
Other discussions or questions before we take a motion? Hear none. Call for the motion.
Yes, sir. I move that for the approval of DWM request the approval and readoption schedule and deadline for the NC 15A, NCAC 02S as presented. Excuse me. I move for the approval of the proposed readoption schedule and deadline for 15A, NCAC 02S as presented.
Yeah, those agenda items, Lois,
Yeah,
it's pretty accurate more than the
Take out
slides
the
sometimes, so. Commissioner Vice Chair Reardon,
I
second that motion. Any discussion among commissioners on the motion? Hear none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's unanimous too. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Monty.
you.
Okay. Next item is an item I think that we had some discussion last time about on the hearing officer's report. There was some discussion about some of the definitions, and we had some stuff from the News Compliance Association. So this item is request for approval of amendments to Tarpanico wastewater discharge requirements, Rule 15A NCAC 02B 0733. John, there's a lot you could say, but I think we pretty much have agreement among the stakeholders in the department here. So let us know what you got.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. Again, I'm John Heisman with the Division of Water Resources. I work in the non-point source planning branch. And my agenda item today is requesting approval of both the hearing officer's report and the associated regulatory impact analysis for the adoption of the proposed amendments to the TARPAM wastewater rule, the 0733 rule. I've presented a number of times to both this commission and the committee, so I'll keep the background brief. But just to remind you, in the TARPAM, we have a nutrient management strategy in place to address the chlorophyll A impairment at the estuary. As a part of that strategy, we have non-point source rules and a point source rule, and we have a long-standing, decades-old agreement between the EMC, the division, and an association of dischargers in the TARPAM known as the TARPAM Basin Association. And this map shows the 15 members of that TARPAM Basin Association. And that agreement essentially sets the end of pipe nitrogen and phosphorus caps that that association operates under, and sets up the framework where the association operates under that group cap. And as long as the association remains under that cap, each individual is deemed compliant with their individual permits. So what this rule amendment process was about taking those requirements that were currently in that agreement and codifying them in the TARPAM wastewater rule, which up to this point, that rule only dealt with new and expanding dischargers. So these amendments amend that rule, bringing in, codifying the existing requirements for the TARPAM Basin Association. This gave us an opportunity to both codify the requirements, provide a more enforceable baseline or foundation for the permits for those facilities, and also a chance to just, update, clarify the language, and add some additional flexibility in how they meet the requirements. As such, since this was just about codifying existing requirements, when we did the regulatory impact analysis that was approved by OSBM, it was found to have no new cost and no substantial economic impact, because we're just codifying what they're already required to do. I came to this commission back in November with the OSBM approved fiscal analysis and the proposed amendments for the request to go out to public hearing. It was approved. Commissioner Baumgartner was assigned as our hearing officer. We took the rule out to public hearing and held a public hearing in February in Greenville. The public comment period was 60 days from January to March 3rd. At the hearing, it was lightly attended. We just had 5 people attend and 1 speaker. We received 3 sets of written comments, and we met with our hearing officer back in March to discuss those comments. As was mentioned by the chair, the 1 set of comments that we resulted in some minor revisions to the proposed amendments were about the definitions that we provided in the rule, specifically the definitions for active allocation, reserve allocation, and limit. We had received comments from the Neuse River Compliance Association, which is their sister association and the Neuse of point source discharges that operate under a cap. They had concerns over the definitions that we were proposing in the TARPAM because they use the same terms in their group permit, but don't have those definitions defined in their rule. And we're worried that defining these terms in the TARPAM would somehow potentially negatively impact their association members. So we met to discuss this with our hearing officer, with the association and DEQ council, and basically came up with a recommendation that everybody agreed to, was what we would make the definitions within the TARPAM rule explicitly clear that they just apply to the TARPAM. So changing the definition term from active allocation to TARPAMICO active allocation. Similarly, calling it the TARPAMICO reserve allocation and TARPAMICO limit. What this does is it allows us to make it abundantly clear that these terms just apply to the TARPAM, lets us move this rule process forward, does not negatively impact the Neuse River Compliance Association. And then we can come back when we come forward with future rule readoptions, which we have coming down the pipeline in the next year, and open up our 0701 definitions rule that applies to all of our nutrient management strategy rules and amend that rule with a refined definition for these terms that would apply to all the different watersheds. So we'd have consistency across all of them. And again, it just, I admit it's not the most elegant fix to this issue, but all the parties agreed and it allows us to move forward and not negatively impact any of the stakeholders. I won't go through this, but just wanted to show you, this is how we changed the rule definitions just to address those concerns. Again, just changing the terms to TARPAM active allocation, TARPAM reserve allocation, and TARPAM limit. And we discussed this with all the parties involved and reached agreement that this would address their concerns. With that, I just want to thank our hearing officer for his timely review and guidance on this process. It helped us really shepherd this through quickly. I want to also recognize Adam Waters from the Tarpon Basin Association couldn't be here today, but we worked closely with them throughout the process and appreciate the collaboration. And just wanted to close with the recommendation that the EMC approve the hearing officer's report and the associated regulatory impact analysis, as well as adoption of the proposed amendments to this rule, the 0733, as presented in this report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Hearing Officer Baumgartner, any comments from you at this point too?
Yeah, as John spoke, this rule change is a narrow focus, basically to bring the association from an agreement into codifying by rule. I'm not thrilled by the active allocation, reserve allocation limit being called the TARPAM. I think we need consistency across rules. The problem is this was a narrow focus of a rule change, and we'd have to change across the rules in order to get that fixed. So this is kind of a Band-Aid for right now as the nutrient rules come up for readoption, that we can make that change and then make these terms consistent across the rules and across the basins. So that's, it's a solution. It's not a great solution, but it is a solution in order to fix and move forward.
Any other big issues that came up in this process?
The only other comments that we had in this process was there were several concerning the model being outdated for the TARPAM assessment, as well as concerns on load limits in the TARPAM, which again, those things were good comments. They're just sort of out of this narrow focus of this rule and should be addressed in the upcoming nutrient readoption.
Okay.
So, but other than that, recommend we move forward.
I think it was mentioned, but I think this MOA technically expires on July 1 of this year or something like that. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I think there was a date that we tried to fit this whole process into too on this narrow focus. And I think we'll make it in substance here as if we approve today. We'll go to the committee. Anything from you, Commissioner Keen? I know you worked quite a bit on this and I was involved early, but I know you worked with Mr. Waters and Mr.
No, sir, I do not. I'm ready to make a motion on that as well.
I'll let the hearing officer make that. You can second it. If any other discussions of staff or the hearing officer on this? Mr. Hearing Officer.
As hearing officer of this particular rule, I recommend that the EMC approve the hearing officer report and association and regulatory impact analysis, as well as the adoption of the proposed amendments to 15A NCAC 02B0733 as presented in the report.
Okay, second from Commissioner Keen. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, let's do one more before we take a little break. I'm not going to read all this one, but it's 25-21, water supply, transfer, water supply, watershed, joint resolution to transfer from Moore County to Southern Pines. But this was heard yesterday in committee. I've asked Shelton to kind of be brief today on this. It's over half of us have heard it, and I think it was unanimous out of committee yesterday. And you'll give us the highlights here and
Yes.
let us ask you questions.
Yes. Good morning. Shelton Sullivan with the Water Supply Watershed Program, a coordinator within the Division of Energy, Mineral and Land Resources. So this was, as Chairman Solomon said, it was at the committee yesterday. The committee approved unanimously. So I will go through the slides briefly, because I got to get to the end of it. But just real briefly, the Water Supply Watershed rules were adopted in 1992. General Statute 143-215.5 is establishes the local programs will adopt the rules as per the minimum standards for the state. The minimum standards of the water supply rules are in the administrative code, 15A NCAC 02B 620 through 624. That's where it establishes the rules. 623 of that rule states that all local governments that have land use authority within those designated watersheds shall adopt and enforce those standards with their ordinances and water supply maps, which they submit to our division for approval. And you can ask any questions, but I'm going to skip to I didn't make it shorter, I'm just skipping it. If you got any questions, please feel free to stop me. Try to get to the and so we're here today about a transfer from the Moore County and Southern Pines. They have a 570 option. 1070 is in the rule. When 1070 became, it changed from a 570 to a 1070 in 1995. The local governments were given the option to keep their 570 if they wanted to do so, and they Moore County and Southern Pines did that. But just in brief, the 1070, so max land mass is 10% of the land area of the water supply watershed, excluding the critical area, is available for development up to 70% built upon area. And it is an option. The local governments do not have to implement these options. It's just an option for different. And some local governments have this option and some do not. It's not allowed in the Water Supply 1, however. So in part of the rule, why we're here specifically is in 624-7CV, a local government having jurisdiction within a designated water supply watershed may transfer in whole or in part its right to the 1070 land area to another local government within the same water supply watershed upon submittal of a joint resolution, which has just been submitted here, and approval by the commission. That's just the way that part of the rules is written. Just a side note, there's many other provisions in the rules that say commission or designee. So this one is very specific. That's why we're here today. So on the specific resolution, joint resolution, August the 24th, Southern Pines sent a request to Moore County to the Board of Commissioners recommending this joint resolution for transferring some of the 570 credits from Moore County to Southern Pines for 2 continuing care retirement communities located within the town limits. Belle Mead specifically, they're requesting 94 acres there, in Pennock Village. In Southern Pines, they're requesting 27 acres. Both within the Little River Intake Number 2 watershed, Water Supply 3 classification. It's 121 acres total. And this quote is from Southern Pines. It says, these tax-exempt communities provide benefit to the entire Moore County population while receiving services directly from Southern Pines. Assigning allocation credits from the county bucket is appropriate planning tool to avoid the sprawl of these campuses into undeveloped farmland and greenfields of the county. This is one reasoning of the request. So they approved this, the October 1, 2024, the joint resolution was approved by Moore County Board of Commissioners and the Southern Pines Town Council. They jointly recommend the transfer and agree to the purposes for the future development and expansion of the existing continuing care retirement communities located within the town's zoning jurisdiction and within the watershed. Joint resolution, I believe it's attachment D in the package, if you want to see it. This map is just showing the outline of the watershed within the county. So the watershed is much larger than that, and actually the intake is in Cumberland County. So the landmass is really all in the protected, in the balance of the watershed, and that's just shown here. Southern Pines is the southwest corner. And there are the two. They are existing developments, but again, it's just redevelopment and expansion of the facilities, upgrading the facilities is the goal. This is a table of what Moore County and Southern Pines had in the inception, 93, in this specific watershed. And again, they took 5% of that number was the original 570 allocation, and their bucket is what they had available. There've been, since 93, there's been several different projects done, other transfers as well. With this current transfer, the remaining acreage is on the right for Moore County and for Southern Pines. So with that, certainly if you have any questions, we can talk about it, but so Denver Stormwater staff requested the EMC approved the October 1, 2024 joint resolution to transfer rights for 121 acres of the 570 credit allocation within the Little River Intake Number 2 water supply watershed to the town of Southern Pines from the county of Moore, North Carolina, for future development and expansion of the existing continuing care retirement communities, Belle Mead and Pennock Village, located within the town's zoning jurisdiction and within the Little River Intake Number 2 watershed.
Questions for
Any
Mr.
questions?
Sullivan? We don't see many of these. Yes, Commissioner Ellison.
Not a question, but a couple comments. I would suggest that fungible development credits are a great tool that local governments and the private sector have to work together for end results that benefit watershed protection and water quality. And I think that it's a good tool, and this is a good application focused on the continuing care facilities. Will help keep a lot of grandmas and grandpas closer to the rest of their family. So I think this is a really good application of what they're allowed to do within the existing rules.
Very good. Commissioner Yarborough.
And I mentioned yesterday, I think it's a great thing that they're trying to protect farmland and green space. So that's a good use of it. And he's talking about the grandfathers and grandmothers. I may be one of those too. So
Baumgartner.
I agree with Commissioner Yarborough about the farmland, but if I understand this correctly, that Moore County just gave up his right to develop any of the county except in Southern Pines. Is that what this says?
No, they just gave a piece of their
No, just a
development
piece.
rights.
100.
They gave some acreage over to the,
Right.
and what's to be applauded here,
They still have
newer
this.
members have never seen this before, even in the last year or two. There's 290 communities, as he mentioned. We don't always see these requests come in, but this kind of scorekeeping should be happening all the time. And I think Mr. Sullivan will be, that's his new charge and his role, I think, is to make sure the scorekeep has been done. But this should really be applauded because they're looking at keeping score and keeping it square between the county and the jurisdictions to make sure the books are balanced right. So. Mr. King?
One comment from yesterday, along with the ag, but the elders being taken care of in this comprehensive plan that not just one governance, but two governances, working in a collaborative way, regionalizing it, bringing their assets together and making it available for those that are most in need. And statistics are showing that 1 in 5 people will be over 65 in 2030. And the greatest part of that growth on that end would be those in 75 to 82, according to statistics. So with that, you're on the right path in this area, and I just think it's a great use as mentioned. But I'm really applauding the collaboration between the two governances working this out. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Carter?
I just wanted to ask a question, since you made that comment about not many of these coming before us, why is this one unlike those others that don't come before us?
I think the tradition is, and I don't want to speak for staff, but my experience is some communities pay close attention to this and really monitor it. And Southern Pines does, and their manager was here yesterday and he's on top of it. Other communities don't pay as much attention to it. So it's one of those things, it's kind of in stormwater and usually the local jurisdictions have that enforcement. It's kind of delegated programs.
Right.
This one remains at the state, so the state has
okay.
to enforce this one.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, we'll take a motion on this. Commissioner King, you want to?
That's a long motion. I can read it all.
Well, we can take
Break
it from the Environmental Management Commission down to watershed number 2. Council can take that if you don't want to read all that.
Well, I just move that we accept the staff's request that we approve October 1, 2024 joint resolution and transfer rights 121 acres, 570 credit allocation within the Little River intake 2 water supply watershed to the town of Southern Pines from the county of Moore, North Carolina to the future development and expansion of existing continuing care retirement communities, Bellmead and Pennick Village, located within the town's zoning jurisdiction and within the Little River intake number 2 watershed, as presented today in the minutes.
Spoken like a true former county commissioner
Okay.
chair. Yes, sir. You did a good. Second by Vice Chair Ellison. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, let's take about a 10-minute break to 10:20 and we will reassemble. Thank you.
Okay. Let's come back to order if we can.
We're getting back in session. All right, take care.
All right, we're back in session. It's a little after 10:20. We'll move to item number 6, 25-22, request approval to proceed the public hearing with proposed amendments to Laboratory Certification Rule 15A NCAC 02H 0804 and add additional parameters. Ms. Swanson.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Beth Swanson. I'm with the Division of Water Resources Lab Certification Branch. Oh, sorry. And I'm here, I guess, to request approval to proceed to public notice and hearing with the amendments to 02H 0804. So a little bit of background on that rule. 15A NCAC 02H 0804 B, C, and D. Those list the parameters that we are allowed to certify labs for to provide certified data for the state. And then 0805 lists the methods that are allowed to be used for those certifiable parameters. So the rule is the mechanism, as I said, to certify labs, and it does not require the monitoring nor reporting. Well, not enough, sorry. Got a little cold, so I might not be talking very loud. And so also commercial laboratories must be certified to provide the data for clients of the state. In particular, a background on 0804B, we would like to add total nitrogen as a parameter. Currently, total nitrogen is not listed as a parameter, but many labs need to get that value, and they have to use a combination of TKN and nitrite, and that is more costly and more time consuming. In particular, the NC Department of Agriculture had requested this addition to save on their staff time and costs. And also they can add, again, they can add those numbers together for TKN, nitrite, but technically it's not a certified parameter, the total nitrogen number. So that is why we're requesting that addition. And so this is just shows the addition of that parameter. In our current rules are black. The addition is in red. So that's that change. And then the next change would be in 0804D, which is organic certifiable parameters. So there are some significant industrial users, particularly the pharmaceutical companies, that are required to report a specific list of pharmaceutical pollutant compounds. That's a list in the 40 CFR. There's about 30 different analytes there. We don't have a parameter currently that includes all of those analytes. So if we add this this parameter, then a lab could provide certified data that includes all those analytes. So that's why we're requesting pharmaceutical pollutants to be added as a parameter to 804D. And then there's the list of currently certified parameters, and then the addition of pharmaceutical pollutants. So again, that's why we're asking to amend the rule to add those two parameters to our rules. And so the Division of Water Resources requesting the EMC approved to proceed to public notice and hearing with the proposed amended rule 15A NCAC 02H 0804 and the associated regulatory impact analysis. And just a note, I still did not update that RIA with the correct name. It still has Todd Crawford as the contact, but he is retired. So I would be the contact for that. And we also request that the EMC chair assign a hearing officer for this rulemaking.
Okay. Questions of staff?
I do.
Commissioner King.
I don't want to do committee work, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it short, but there was a question on pharmaceuticals. The slide, not before this one, but that one. Proposed, I see, parameters. I was looking at the RIA, and when you got into the parameters with chemicals and I just saw pharmaceutical pollutants. So did they consider the waste from plastics? Or they just do needles or they just do chemicals? In those
It's-
parameters, how big is pharmaceutical waste?
Well,
Or is it broken down?
it's specifically 30 compounds that are listed it's in the 40 CFR Part 136.3. There's a table called pharmaceutical pollutants, and it's a list of 30 compounds, and we are analytes, and we don't certify by analytes. That's why we have these kind of groups of parameter. So actually, some of those analytes or compounds are in some of these other lists, like there's 2 or 3 of those pollutants that are also found under the purgeable organics parameter, but to have a full list of all of those that might be required by a permit for an SIU pharmaceutical company, we added that pharmaceutical pollutants so that we could get all those analytes as certified.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
On pollutants. The pharmaceutical pollutants parameter, just those 3 words and how it's listed in the RIA. I guess it was pushed through with the department. Has the department looked at the total parts of pharmaceuticals as the definition of pharmaceutical waste, including other than compounds? The paper, the waste, anything that has to do with pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure about that. That's just how we named that, just because that's how it's named in the 40 CFR Part 136.3. That's just what the title of that table is. So that's why we named it that. And it's just like analytical, it's like compounds that might be used during the process of making the pharmaceuticals, and not all of them usually are included in each SIU. It's just like what each pharmaceutical company uses.
Mr. Chairman, I have not been on this hearing officer, and I've looked through this prior to when you say pharmaceutical pollutants, I'll go to a druggist, a pharmaceutical, I'll take a pill container, they won't take it. If they do, there's paper on it, they've got to treat it as waste. Pharmaceutical pollutants and the mental health, substance abuse, IDDs, all the dollars that are going to Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid, hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent in Medicaid and pharmaceutical, whether they be from the child right on up to elder. All of this pharmaceutical, the word pharmaceutical. If this says pharmaceutical pollutants parameter, shouldn't there be something to do with plastics or glass that has to do with pharmaceutical, whether it's manufactured or whether it ends up as a waste product?
I'm not sure if that's in any of the permits. I mean,
it probably is not in the, I don't know. I'm just bringing that thought up for future discussion
Okay.
and thought.
Commissioner Yarborough.
This is about lab certification, though.
It is.
So that's which is a completely different, separate thing than what you're asking, I think.
Yes, sir.
But it brings up another point. There's a lot of pharmaceutical waste, obviously, but this is about who's certifying the lab. That's my interpretation.
Yeah, I understand it's the laboratory, but I was just looking at the way the narrative was framed around pharmaceutical pollutants parameter.
Are you bothered by the definition of that, or not having a definition, or what do you?
The narrative,
wanna
the
change
word
some of that?
pharmaceutical pollutants parameter.
Okay.
There's
That's
many
defined
pollutants with
somewhere?
pharmaceutical.
don't believe we would have to update our definitions, part of the rule to include that definition, which is a
Is
different.
it in the
Not talking
CFR?
about
It's in the
wetlands.
Oh, it's in the
CFR.
CFR, right.
Not talking
Yeah,
about
sorry.
wetlands, just pharmaceutical.
But it is in the CFR.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for hearing my thoughts.
Understand the longer term vision of that, but we'll hopefully we'll let it ride here
We
within
will,
the
yes.
CFR. Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Other comments? Any other questions from staff? Commissioner Smith?
Because I can't help myself. I hate this rule and I've never understood why it exists.
You talk
There is
about
a-
this. I've heard you talk about this before.
I have talked about this before. I think we really need to reexamine at some point, not today, the whole purpose of this rule, because there is a separate rule that requires certification of parameters by the state lab. This list makes no sense to me. I don't know why we have to go through rulemaking to add something to the list that the state is going to certify for. There has got to be a better way, whether that's just maintaining a list at DEQ and maybe maintaining that list under some general direction in EMC rules that the state needs to be prepared to certify for any pollutant that is a limitation on a permit. I mean, maybe there's some broad language that would be helpful to have in the rules, but going through this exercise over and over again to add specific parameters, I don't know what the purpose is. It's not regulating the labs. It's just listing what we will certify for. So end of my sermonette today on.
Director
my
Rogers, I
favorite
assume,
rule.
and I always assume things fall under you, but does this fall under your purview? Yes, sir. Can you guys look at the couple rules, maybe work with Commissioner Smith on her pet peeve here, and we will, rules review and readoption, maybe we have an opportunity to merge some rules together here, maybe, if you'll give us some thoughts?
Absolutely. Commissioner Smith and I have had several conversations in the past on this, and we will.
And you can see how persuasive.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm inviting you one more time to maybe see if
Okay.
we can put these rules together and then readoption and make
we
one out
will.
of it.
We will definitely take a look at that.
And
work
Commissioner
toward
King's
that end.
concerned too, if you'll look into what he said and talk a little bit with that.
Yes, will do. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Question.
Commissioner Ellison, man, here we go.
Just a question is it within, do we have the authority to delegate these certifications to the department with one rule and then they don't have to keep coming back?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to know the intention and the authorizations. I think Commissioner Smith probably does, but I would like us all to know before we would do that. So delegated or combined rules, we could do something to make that better.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Wow, I forget why we're here now.
That's right.
I'm scared to ask any more questions of staff. Okay, hearing none. Commissioner King, did this come through your committee? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we move to accept the division's DWR's request that the EMC approve to proceed to public hearing, public notice and hearing with the proposed amended Rule 15A NCAC 02H.0804 and the associated RI regulatory impact analysis with that. The division also.
No, we don't need that. I know my duty as the chair.
We got that, yeah.
Okay, all right, so we got a motion. We have a second from Commissioner Ellison. No? Commissioner Tweedy, you want a second? Commissioner Tweedy will second this. Well, you gotta talk before, so I'm just gonna say. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much. Okay, it was good discussion. Let's go to, we generated some more action out of that, I guess, but, let's go to information items. Again, the Western North Carolina Fire Hazard Update will come in July. Before I give it over to Commissioner, I believe, Commissioner Yarborough is going to lead this, but let me back and give a little briefing on this. And, Commissioner Yarborough, as I think most of you know by now, is the Haywood County Soil and Conservation District Chairman, or whatever the title he'll tell you it is. It is an unpaid position. He gets to do it just like he does here, a lot of volunteer work. But he's done it for a while, and he went through Tropical Storm Fred several years ago. And he watched, and is still watching, the debates over who needs a permit for what and who has authorization to do what, and what the locals don't know to do that the state knows or the feds know. How do we communicate? So he's lived through that, and then Helene hit. And so on top of what he's experienced through Fred, Helene hits, And it's a much bigger problem, obviously. But what he has been able to do is pull a stakeholder group within Haywood County, because that's his purview, not the whole western state, but he has gotten cooperation from DEQ, several state agencies and several state federal agencies. He'll tell you that, to come together and say, what can we do to make this whole process better? How can we streamline it? How can the locals, how can the people be helped faster? He's done this through agriculture too, with those disasters in the past when he worked there, and he's done it now. Commissioner Yarborough, and I share this passion with him because I've been through these too. He wants to figure out a way to make this better, so we don't keep repeating the same old mistakes. So Commissioner Yarborough, I know you had the Assistant Secretary and the Deputy Secretary up with you too, and I think you'll give a report on your meetings and what y'all talked about.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity here because we did talk about it last time, the permitting thing. Richard Rogers came up earlier with his folks. That's in December, I think, is that actually came up, looked at things. Then the deputies, both of them came, Sushma and John Nicholson came up, and we had a great visit because we had the FEMA administrator from this, I guess, Region 4, pretty much. Emergency Management, State Emergency Management had the director. DEQ folks mentioned. We had the local floodplain folks in Haywood and a couple other counties there. And we had the Army Corps, which was a pretty good showing when you think about it. So each one of them, I kind of let it off with request, and I mentioned this yesterday, is if you qualified to do something, why can't right after the storm, can't you have it be either a deemed permit or a general permit on a lot of these things? Because it's obvious what work we're going to be doing. If you're qualified and you're able to do it, then I think that's something to think about. But the second thing, and I mentioned this yesterday as well, it's a disaster until the money runs out. And the fact that we call it emergency, and then all of a sudden this September 1, with air quality that we heard about this morning, or whenever it is, makes absolutely no sense. Because it's still an emergency under Fred. That's 4 years ago. But if it's not declared that way, so then the funding and the permitting and everything becomes an issue. So I am really grateful to this group, and I think each one of them talked about their piece. And it became obvious, and I think you would agree, Sushma, that it became that we're all in silos. And that's not healthy. Because one permit can mean that it can't do something till you get the other permit. And maybe there's not a permit needed at all. And the best example I can say there that it's been overwhelmingly obvious to me is that as a general rule with permitting, it's always came up to either the 404, it's the 401, the state piece, or somebody would always say, well, it was the Corps requires that. Well, I just watched the Corps go through the Swananoa River right through the middle of Biltmore and Ashland. Go up the Little River, go up to Davidson. Not claiming that that's the right thing to do, but all I'm saying is that if they are the authority everybody's worried about, they're the ones doing it. So I think there's an opportunity here to be in the middle road somewhere. If the Soil and Water Conservation Districts are getting funded through the Division of Soil and Water to do this kind of work, if they're working with the Natural Resources Conservation Service because of the Emergency Watershed Protection Program, if there's other monies available, then allow us to work. If there's a consulting groups that would love to be part of that, allow them to work. Because right now, the only people after an emergency, whether you're in Western North Carolina or Eastern North Carolina, the only people able to work is somebody like me that has a tractor. But immediately after, and thank God for the tractors, because those were the non-human first responders. Without those tractors, there wouldn't have been anybody been able to get anything after Helene. But that brings up another piece. If we did this and we had some deemed permitting or some way to do this very quickly, the people that are qualified could be in those areas a lot faster. The staff that I have with soil and water could have been out there on the most helpful with those people with the tractors and the track hoes. But I can't send them out because we don't have a permit. So I guess the piece here is how can we do it? I think Sushma has been working with that with John and all her staff. But that's one piece of it. We still got to get the core. We got to get the no-rise people with the floodplain administrators, because it's the local people that take it. The local regulator is the one that cannot sign off on. They have the mortgage, they have the kids at school. They do not want to, nor should they be expected to sign off on something and risk federal monies or state monies coming back to their county. So you're putting huge responsibility on a local administrator that's responsible without some kind of knowledge from the state and the feds. So that's my spiel. And I don't know if that
I
makes any
think we're
sense.
looking at two things. I think the department may be looking with you at developing a framework where we can share information better or some way to protocol. And I think we've talked about maybe within our purview, and I've asked counsel, she can comment here, but we don't have, and nor are we trying to usurp emergency declaration responsibilities, but we do look at a lot of permitting. And some of the issues we could probably do as an EMC is the permits that are within our purview. We can make sure that those are granted during an emergency, those permits stay in place until the money runs out, so to speak. We all know permitting, sometimes you add on the things to permits and it throws the whole thing out. We get the permits during an emergency, maybe we can make those good throughout the duration of the funding, so the projects can count on the money and people. But we got to get there faster with the first part, which is the communication part. So any other things that I'm missing, Commissioner Yarborough, that you're interested in?
Well, the other thing, I'm thinking about it on things that y'all have done, it's been incredible. The piece that you have from municipalities as a loan program for the wastewater and public water, that would be huge for a lot of different reasons for public work. Good example is farmers with all these down trees. They don't have any money. Why would they want to worry about their forest when they're trying to get a crop in the ground? A little bit of money right there could get this forest working started that the federal government actually has money for, but it's reimbursement. And it's a 75% cost share, so they're not even going to spend the 25. You can't, little things like that can be a huge piece without a lot of money, but it takes some thought. Most people don't think about the forestry piece. But right now we have, I'm prolificating, I guess, since it's Pope's time too, I guess you can have. Now that if we absolutely have all kinds of promises for billions of dollars in Western North Carolina. But to date, there has been $0 delivered for anything that I'm aware of. Most of the counties are out millions of dollars for reimbursements. Haywood County, as of last week, had a little over $600,000 back with probably $15 million worth of expenses associated with it. 4 counties were in Fred, 29 in Helene. These people that have no experience, these counties, something's going to give. You're talking about a county commissioners are going to have a tough time. I know that's nothing we can do, but it's really things to think about when you start adding to these programs. No money, no way to get it. 7, 8 months, still hadn't done anything. Now, I'm embarrassed by it, to be honest with you. Public servant, Haywood, chairman of the board. I get in part of the general election, so you can put honor it there, like they do everybody else. No. So that's not something that I take for granted. I want to be able to help these people. So thank you, all of you, for doing it.
Let me go to council real quick, because she did a little bit of, I don't put you on the spot, but you did a little research on initial research on how we could probably as an EMC help some of this stuff along or not, right?
Right. So, I mean, the initial research that I've done suggests that the EMC does not have the authority to write rules for what would occur during a state of emergency. That is specifically the power of the governor. However, there may be some authority that you have for what happens after the state of emergency is declared. And that's what we're looking into now, is how, if there's a way to write a rule that would allow the department to exercise some discretion, which I think they already do, but putting it in rule as to what can happen once the official state of emergency is over. But there is still certainly a disaster area in place. So we're looking into it. We're working on statutory authority, looking into language that would be used and how it could work both under the EMC's authority and fit within the requirements of the APA.
That'd be great, because, you can use an example, FEMA and some of the other agencies, take 5 years. Once declared a disaster, it's good for 5 years. With all it takes is another piece of paper asking for an exemption after that. This thing for September 1st is just unacceptable. So if we can figure out a way to do that, I think it would be very helpful.
Commissioner Ellison.
A question for the department, and I appreciate you working on this because it is a problem right now. It's a problem in Haywood County in Western North Carolina. But later this year or next year, it's going to be a problem in Eastern North Carolina. So my question is, are you working with emergency management on some of the FEMA floodplain regulations and ways to expedite approvals?
Morning, Sushma Mace-Moore, I'm the Deputy Secretary for Environment. That is a conversation we've had with the Division of Emergency Management. It is something that we have requested that is a priority, but it is within their purview and their authority.
Okay.
I do understand for the flood resiliency blueprint work that we're doing that you may be aware of. We have been working with them to create an updated maps and systems that would be allowed us to incorporate that into the blueprint for the various basins that we are in the process of including in that blueprint. And associated with that work is the emergency management team that is re-looking at that floodplain.
Can we get a presentation on that?
I'm happy to.
Through the EMC or through the Water Allocation Committee, one of the two.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Not just water allocation.
Well, let's go to the full EMC. That's
I
fine.
think so,
That's
yeah.
fine. We'll work on the format, maybe even have some emergency management people here to hear us make the request if it's their purview. too.
Yeah, it is of interest with all of our divisions, dam safety, our water resources program, also DOT, Department of Ag, the new floodplain maps or the revised floodplain maps are going to be important decision support tools as we move forward.
And that raises an issue because floodplain maps may be updated through a letter of map revision that's generated for a specific project that may encroach on the floodplain. And the main mapping that, different parts of the state get their FEMA floodplain mapping updated at different rates. And in the mountains where you don't have a lot, you don't have the same frequency of letters of map revision like you do in suburban Charlotte or something like that. A lot of people are going to find out that their land is now regulated, and it hasn't been ever. And so they're going to need to do a letter of map revision to rebuild their barn back where it's been for 100 years. And that letter of map revision is going to cost them $75,000. And I think that's an issue that emergency management needs to be aware of. And we need to find some kind of workaround to get through the FEMA regulations to preserve longstanding and traditional land uses.
I totally agree with you, and I think it would be useful for all of us to hear where EM is it related to that planning and that fourth right thinking. I will say that the water and wastewater systems that we just heard about, we do have legislative appropriated $100 million in bridge loans that allows the water systems to begin the reconstruction work and address their failing systems that have been damaged. the key question is, and the reason that that money is not as spent as much as it should be, and that money has been available for many months, is whether FEMA is going to allow those reimbursements to be valid. And so they are borrowing that money as a loan, and there's concerns from the local governments. Is this going to be an approved project? Is this going to be FEMA approvable? And the underlying fundamental decision point could be exactly what you said, which is it out of the floodplain? Is it in a vulnerable area? Those decision points are not in our purview. And again, it is FEMA and emergency management. I think they can provide some insight on that.
Okay, we'll schedule that. Commissioner Yarborough.
And her point is, and Commissioner Ellison's point is very scary. Every creek was where the road went. You could fish out of your truck from the road. Well, now if they map those maps according to what Helene did, which is an anomaly, then there won't be a road. They'll be all up on the side of the hill. Now, I don't know how we're going to deal with that. And the no-rise will become an issue that nobody has ever even thought of. It's not the same as a flood down east where you have a 400-foot floodplain. A lot of theirs is 3 feet from the road. It's a huge issue that I hope somebody will look at.
But I would agree with you all that this body is a good place for us to collectively discuss those changes that have occurred and how do we better prepare and plan. It's complicated, and it's not just one entity that has all the answers. We may not even have answers, but those are questions that we do need to address and come together as a state, as a region, to be able to help decision-making today that's going to affect so many people.
Okay, very good.
Who are you working with at the Corps of Engineers to bring their permits and your permits and looking forward, thinking to get something in place as soon as possible? Who is the individual you're working with?
So with the Corps, we always work with the Wilmington district, Wilmington office. They're the head of the group across the state. And we have a really good relationship with them, with the colonel and his staff. And this is something that we're going to talk with. We've talked with Commissioner Yarborough about this. We want to bring all of our air, water, and land programs together to come up with a framework, as you mentioned, and go over that with a few people. And then we want to bring in a few external bodies, such as emergency management and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and others that we work directly with to be able to come back with some concepts and perhaps even a pilot or an initiative where we can test this out.
Okay. All right, let us keep moving. Thank you, Ms. Mazemore.
Thank you for your time, too. What y'all are doing, it makes a difference.
We will continue to hear, I think y'all have expressed concern, interest in ongoing Helene updates. We'll continue to have those as we move throughout the rest of this calendar year as we track what's going on there. So, all right, at this time, I'm going to move to our second information item today, which is give you a little background on this. There are, I think there's 5. I gave them to Sushma 5, and to Richard, 5 kind of nutrient interest things that we're not hearing a lot about, but they're going to be coming to us in some fashion or form probably this year. They were calendared, I think, in the original calendar that we developed to come maybe in January. But 2 of those are here, and I just wanted Rich Gannon or somebody from that group to come and give us a brief update on both the Falls Lake rules that we will probably see in one form or another in September. And then we've got the Neuse Watershed Model Update, which has been presented to at least one other group in public, but we have not seen it. So I just want to get some input make sure all the commissioners are aware of what's going on with that. So Rich, your floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Rich Gannon, supervise the non-point source planning branch with DWR. As the chairman said, this is a 2-part item. First part being an update on the status of development of a watershed model for the Neuse River Basin. And the second part is an update on policy discussions going on associated with the readoption of the Falls nutrient rules. The watershed model, there was 2020 session law that mandated that the department develop a watershed model for the entire Neuse River Basin for the purpose of developing transport factors to support nutrient offsets. The background on that, just a little background. Trading has been a part of these nutrient strategies from the very start. The basic idea is to provide more cost-effective options for sources to get reductions while going to other places. The great bulk of trading to date has been non-point source to non-point source for new development offsets. In recent times, dischargers have become more interested in looking into nutrient offsets as communities are growing and pushing up against their wastewater limits to help pad out their allocations. How transport factors relate to offsets in any offset situation, the loading source and the offsetting reduction are likely to be different distances from the impaired water body. So the implication being that they are attenuated to differing degrees before they reach the impaired water body. So if you just use the at-source loads, you might end up offsetting more or less than is needed. So the transport factors provide a essentially more accurate approach. The nutrient offset statute has generally dealt with this disparity by simply restricting the geography of where the offset can occur to within the same 8-digit hydrologic unit as the load. It also does provide for individual nutrient strategies to get more specific. And speaking of which, to the Neuse Basin has transport factors. They're from the original 1999 TMDL. They were used in setting the wastewater allocations. They are, however, a bit coarse. They divide the basin into 4 delivery zones, and they're based on simple first order decay coefficients. So that sets up the watershed model and its utility. The 2020 session law required the department to develop this model. And then it also required the EMC to adopt the transport factors that resulted. In 2023, that session law was modified to make it such that the EMC, the department may do the watershed modeling, which really didn't matter at that point. It had been contracted and was underway. And the EMC may, if warranted, adopt rules on the transport factors. So the current model status is that the contractor has completed a draft of the watershed model, provided it to us in December of last year. We distributed it for comment, and in January held a stakeholder meeting where the contractor went through the products and the results. I'll say the basic substantive results are that the resulting transport factors were probably closer than most people expected to the original 1999 values. We received a few comments by the April 1st deadline, and the modeling branch and the contractor have been reviewing them and are discussing, final revisions to the products before it's all completed. So that's what I want to cover on that. I can pause for questions.
Pause for a second. Any questions on transport factors in the news? Commissioner Ellison.
Just a quick question. Who's the contractor?
Respect, RESPEC, out of Minnesota, I think.
Thank you.
Sure.
So Rich, we'll see that report probably in September to make some decisions by the session law on what we think about adopting those specific transport factors. Is that a fair timeline of expectation for us? And I assume that's going to go through the Water Quality Committee probably out of the gate.
We haven't discussed when it might come back. We're looking first at getting a supplemental contract in place. which might take a month. The work might take 2 months. So we're looking perhaps late summer for the final products.
Okay, so September will be close, and we can decide in the meantime. I think the legislation said the EMC, so we usually take it through committee, but we may look at this first by the EMC and then take it to the Water Quality Committee, Water Quality Committee after we do it, but we'll decide on that. But
Your hearing officer?
we don't have one.
No. Who was there hearing?
There is no hearing. The model is just a work product, so
Did you
there's
not
no,
have public comment?
not yet, stakeholder process.
I thought you said you had.
We had,
A public hearing.
we have received, we closed the comment period April 1st and received a few comments.
Okay, they just went straight to the department.
Yeah.
Okay, I got
Yeah.
you. That's what confused me.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason I wanted, we've not heard from Rich
Right.
on this matter, and we had legislation from 3 or 4 years ago and updated. We need to be aware of it so we can be prepared to be active at the right time, and it's probably the right time now as we get into the window now.
So Chair
Okay.
Solomon, what would
Yes,
the
Commissioner
committee
Butler.
or the EMC be approving? Are we approving the model or the allocation strategy, or what would come before the committee?
Well, right now, if you have to read the legislation, there was some part work at one time about we may hire a third party to put a model, to review the model if we disagreed with it. It all goes back to that 1999 TMDL that they've been trading under for 30 years.
Right.
And as these transport factors change, they could have significant impact. I mean, really significant impacts. I think the punchline right now, from what I've heard, I've not seen it, but as Rich indicated, they were pretty close in 1999 with what they did. So I don't think it's going to be, doesn't sound like a drastic change with what we've been doing. So we may not have a lot of action once we review this or not. But when it was commissioned by statute, we didn't know where it would go. So that's kind of where we're at, trying to evaluate it. Anything else? Okay, very good. Thank you, Rich. Let's move on to Falls, if we will.
Sure. So the background on Falls, you all received items in January and March from John Heisman presenting updates on the rules readoption along with Forrest Westall of UNRBA. So I won't go into process, move straight to policy. Wanted to touch on a context item or two. This is stage 2 of all of these nutrient strategies. It's adaptation. It's different, certainly, and more challenging than the original adoptions, which all essentially use the same model of applying the overall reduction goals of the strategy to each of the major sources. We now have new lake models in both Falls and Jordan. They use new baseline time periods and estimate new reduction needs that are, to some extent overlaid on the original ones. So we're seeking incremental further reductions where they're available, and alternatives at times for what proved to not work so well in the implementation of the current rules. And so in general, the discussions have been more deliberative. Since last November, UNRBA has conducted an intensive series of work group meetings by rule subject. DWR has participated. We have differences still with UNRBA on some of the items, but we continue to work on it. UNRBA may make final recommendations in June or July, I'm not sure. But meantime, DWR is working on rule drafts. We intend to take them out this summer to finalize them so that we can move into the fiscal analysis and bring rules to you early 26 to stay on the approved readoption timeline. In terms of the individual rules, agriculture, we really don't have any significant disagreements with the stakeholders. So I'll move on to existing development, where experience tells us that finding retrofit opportunities in the developed landscape has proven very challenging. And so, however, the investment-based compliance approach that was developed collaboratively with UNRBA mid-stage 1 has proven productive, and it does appear to be sustainable. So we're in agreement on building that investment approach into the rule in this round and expanding the practice options wherever we can, including use of agricultural practices. Certainly, there's further discussion required, such as mechanistically how to build that investment approach into the rule. But moving on to new development, rule implementation has proceeded, and readoption is providing an opportunity to address some of the challenges that have emerged in the implementation of the current rule. The parties do agree on several elements. Keeping the nutrient export target approach is a big one. That said, we are looking to address the shortage in phosphorus offsets that has developed as a result of a combination of specifics by narrowing the compliance to the nitrogen rate target only, which fits with the lake model findings and will still result in BMPs reducing phosphorus. It just wouldn't be a compliance target. And the parties agree on this. Certainly further discussion is needed on some of the specifics, such as the design expectations for on-site reductions. With respect to wastewater, importantly, we are proposing to drop the stage 2 nitrogen and phosphorus wastewater limits that are in the current rule. I think everybody recognizes that they remain unachievable with current facilities and current technology limits. And at this point, we're evaluating the implications of maintaining the stage 1 limits for this coming rule cycle. And so that's going to require further discussion with the dischargers. UNRBA's proposal is to significantly increase the allocations to the point that they would actually exceed the 2006 baseline loads. We see that as not meeting the intent of a 4B reduction strategy.
But let me ask you, Rich, I've got the question in the past. We talk about adaptive management, and that says if things are better off, I mean, in theory, right, up high, adaptive says if things are better, we loosen the rules. If things are worse, we tighten the rules. I keep, from DEQ, I always get the thing, if it's, we're not gonna make them better. If it's better, we're not gonna do anything, but if it's worse, we're gonna tighten them up. In this case, it's been better. And I think UNRB's done 10 years of research to show things are better than what we expected. So maybe that's a bigger conversation, but it seems like some of the allocations or some of the rules could be slackened a little bit in the face of there's no useful purpose for them if we're better than what we thought. So just a comment there. But I think adaptive management should go both ways if we're going to wave that flag. So, I mean, you've heard me say that before. Let me let you finish and then we'll have a couple questions.
Sure. Lastly, it's the purpose and scope rule, which, as the name suggests, is it's the overall goal setting rule, provides a framework for the rest. It doesn't include any specific requirements. And in that, we are proposing to eliminate stage 2 of the strategy and the current rules in favor of adaptive requirements based on the new model and based on our implementation experience. And also recognizing that we now have a 10-year rule readoption cycle in place that provides for making revisions down the road. Per the new lake model, we're proposing to include a new baseline time period and new reduction goals. UNRBA, on the other hand, is proposing to remove the goals, remove reference to the chlorophyll A standard as the benchmark, and to replace it with broader language calling for the lake to maintain its trophic status, which is a broader metric of its condition. So that's really everything I wanted to cover. Happy to Take questions.
I have several. Commissioner King?
Quick question on these changes, then moving forward through water quality or water allocation. So which is going to cross over, or is it going to stay in one?
This will go, nutrients go through water quality. This is heavy water quality. It'll come through water quality.
Yeah, all of it.
Yes,
Wastewater.
yes. Mr. Deerhake?
Thank you for the update. You said there was plans to quote, drop unquote, wastewater limits. Could you expand on that? What do you mean by the word drop?
Yeah, I'm Commissioner Deerhake, I'm referring to the stage 2 limits that are in the current rule. The dischargers are currently meeting their stage 1 limits, and stage 2 was suspended for the readoption to replace it. And so they, under what we are proposing at this point, they would continue to meet their stage 1 limits. So they would still have limits.
But you said you followed that up by saying that technologically stage 2 wasn't achievable with the current state of technology. Is that what you said?
That's right.
Okay.
Well, rules are written
So-
sometimes anticipating where the technology is going to go. And I think some of this, Rich, if following the blank from what I know, just for reference, is stage 2 would have required a lot of MBR installations, very expensive MBR treatment. BNR, is targeted, people say 3.5 is what a process engineers, a lot of places get 2.8, 2.5 out of their BNR system. So right now, with the levels they've seen in falls, there's no reason to go to an MBR technology. And I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think that's where the debate is do we invest all this money when we've already got the results we need or better than we expected? That's the debate, and how you look at that in the future is I think where everybody's got to evaluate. Is that right, Rich, or close, hand grenade distance?
Yeah, I think so. I think when we adopted the original rules, we recognized that it would at that time it would require reverse osmosis to be able to achieve the ultimate 40 and 77% nitrogen and phosphorus reductions that the strategy called for, and that would, well, generally considered prohibitively expensive. And so the hope was that other technologies might come along in the meantime. We also included in the purpose and scope rule the ability for parties to do new modeling and propose to revisit the whole thing, which has in fact happened.
Sure, Commissioner Derrick.
You refer to the current state of, or the quality of the water in the lake, but any long-range forecasting going on with development around the area, or land management, land use around the area?
Well, I mean, I can say that certainly development is expected to continue, particularly around the Durham area, and that's going to present ongoing challenges to, maintaining the current condition of the lake. So the new development rule is pretty important in that regard.
Right.
Some of
And
that,
then-
if I can add, some of that debate too comes on land conservation. You've heard Bill Holman, I know you've been there a long time. I think staff or DWQ wants 15% of conservation in the thing. I think the UNRB would want 50%. So land conservation is an active way to control development sometimes, but how that's counted in the rules is going to be another topic we'll have to debate about how much should be accounted for here too. So I've heard those discussions as well.
I hope that there will be some forecasting done to anticipate the increased burden on the lake with the change in land use or population growth in the state, so that we don't have to revisit this all over again. I understand the technological challenges of wastewater treatment are prohibitive, cost prohibitive right now. But the second point I wanted to ask about, you made, you said that UNRBA has proposed removing chlorophyll A as the measurement of water quality. Is that correct?
In the purpose and scope, I believe that's an accurate statement. Yep.
What's the department's opinion about that?
Well, the division has concerns with that and sees the need to retain the chlorophyll A standard as the benchmark for the strategy as a 4B TMDL alternative restoration plan. It went on to the 303D list based on the chlorophyll A standard, and the restoration strategy centers around that recovery of that standard.
So if UNRBA's wishes came true and the chlorophyll A were removed, what parameter through the TMDL program would the state have to rely on to measure the quality of the water?
Well, their proposal is to have language in there about maintaining the trophic status of the lake. So that would be a broader expectation. And
But that's not something that's articulated in the TMDL program, right?
that's correct.
So we would lose any reference point. I'm concerned about that.
Well, and I want
should
to make
say.
sure we're talking, and Rich is doing his best, but Alex Montos is here too from Brown and Caldwell that works for UNRB. Forrest couldn't be here, so if she could talk to that topic if we want to. I think there's another topic that's wound up in this, which is the lake segments. And again, we're going segment by segment, and we're going up in some shallow reaches where you're always getting impairment.
I understand
And
that.
so,
I know
yeah.
that's been a big part of the discussion.
It is, and I'll just,
so
Alex, do you
I'd
want
like
to say anything on chlorophyll A from UNRBA? I know Rich has got his perspective, but is there anything you want to clarify on any of that?
Yes, please.
Will you introduce yourself and who you work for?
I'm Alex Matos. I work for Brown and Caldwell. I'm the project manager for the UNRBA's reexamination project. It's simply not true that we have removed chlorophyll A from the purpose and scope. We have kept that language in there. What we have proposed is to add additional assessments, not just focus on chlorophyll A. Many of our stakeholders, including environmental interest groups, American Rivers, have also supported that idea. So we are proposing to look at chlorophyll A, pH, and dissolved oxygen, but also to look at algal biomass, algal species shifts, algal toxins, recreational use data, data from Wildlife Resources Commission, information from the City of Raleigh on water treatability. We are proud of the work that's been done to reduce nutrient loading and achieve a stable trophic status in Falls Lake. We don't think that only looking at chlorophyll A gives us a good assessment of the progress that we've made and the direction that we're going. We want to be able to look at a broader view, to look at changes and figure out if what we're doing is improving the situation or making it worse. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And again, we're high level right here. We don't even have slides, so I just want to make sure if there are other opinions. Rich, let me ask you a question because I got a couple of ag guys here, and I know that's been a debate. The ag, I think there's been some discussion of dropping ag all the way out because ag's going way far down in this basin, or leaving it in just for reporting. Is there any consensus on that right now about the status of how much more rigorous we would make ag in this whole process, given?
Sure. And I apologize for that oversimplification on chlorophyll A. So the status of the implementation on the agriculture rule, current agriculture rule, the progress accounting has shown that agriculture has exceeded its reduction goals for both stage 1 and stage 2, 20 and 40% nitrogen reduction in terms of stemming nitrogen losses from ag lands by a significant amount. Most of that has been driven by economic factors that we don't believe are likely to recur. And so part of the result has been about an 80% decrease in hay acres in the watershed, which is a huge decrease, and a 50% decrease in nitrogen application rate to those acres. So that's been a big factor. Both of those trends have stabilized in recent years. So the outlook is that we believe that there are going to be limited opportunities for further reductions by agriculture. And so other considerations are that in falls and all the strategies really, BMP implementation has increased really only when there's been new money put into the system. And so that's a consideration. At the same time, ag staff resources have dwindled over the years. And so, we're thinking a better use of their time is to streamline the accounting and focus more on assisting implementation. So what we're proposing are fairly significant revisions for agriculture, which would involve not including a reduction goal requirement, and shifting from the more involved NLU-based accounting that you probably heard about in the past to a more simplified tracking of a whole host of agricultural indicators over time that would be a little easier, more automated and easier to reproduce, and allowing local governments credit for funding agricultural practices under the existing development rule. And the parties generally agree on this approach.
Okay. One more for me, and I could talk about development stuff forever probably, but let's go to DOT. I know DOT's been one of your points here, and it's same in Jordan, but a lot of highways out there. Is DOT in or out as you look forward? How do we look at DOT and all this?
Well, and yeah, so DOT in the current rules is committed to doing 6 retrofits per year in the Falls watershed, 3 in Jordan watershed under the existing development rule. They have made the case to us that they have proposed to sort of revert to their statewide NPDES permit for those purposes, because they are finding it increasingly difficult to find sites in the Falls watershed for doing retrofits within they're limited to their right-of-ways. So they're proposing to sort of revert to their statewide permit, which requires 14 retrofits a year, 70 over the 5-year term, statewide. So in any given year, that would mean Falls may or may not see a retrofit. That's where that proposal is, when we haven't identified any alternatives for that at this point.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Baumgartner.
I'm not going to chase this rabbit long, I promise. But just curious, you said Respect is your contractor for the model. Just looking at their website, says they evaluate transport factors, and they have a proprietary or support proprietary SAM, Scenario Application Manager. How close is that to the original model to begin with? Was this developed independently? And 2, did the state pay for a model that it does not own now?
So to my understanding, and I'm not a modeler, the SAM is an add-on application for making better utility of the results of the model. It's the HSPF model is the.
So did we take the 99 model and make it better, or did we start independently to make those comparisons? Because if you only took the 99 model and made it better, yeah, they're going to be coming up very similar. If you did an independent model and independent evaluation, and both the 99 and the current model were similar.
The 99 factors didn't use a model per se. They used an engineering calculation, a pretty simple equation. So this is a full-blown watershed delivery model. Yeah, and so we have. I'm pretty sure it's accurate to say we have the SAM add-on package is part of what we have received from the contractor.
Okay, couple more. Let's go. Commissioner Deerhake, you had one. I thought I saw a hand over here, but Commissioner Deerhake.
This comment just has to deal with the reference he made to the upcoming 10-year review. I would hope that these substantial changes are not going to be folded into the 10-year review, that they would be a standalone proposal. Because my understanding is 10-year review is pretty procedural, things that are no longer applicable, obsolete, et cetera.
That is correct. And that has been some of my concern to this point. When you read the session laws,
the time it gives to update this is in the rules review and readoption. What y'all probably heard me say is the Upper News Basin Association, probably better than anybody else in the state, has spent about 10 years and $10 million to do all this research. If we wait 2 more years to move on it, are we already outdated and doing whatever? So I think they would rather come with the department, but I think they're ready to bring rules to us too. As Rich said, he may bring us rules in September or November or something, but they may bring us rules too at some point. As y'all do the math here, would be my thing is, we've not really been involved in this process at all, to Commissioner Deerhake's point. So we got to get up to speed, and we got July and maybe September to digest a lot of things. And from what I hear from stakeholders, there's still a lot of controversies out there. So I think, my charge would be a couple of things, Rich, if you could. And Forrest Westall has volunteered with Upper News Basin to have us, if we want one of our commissioners or several of our commissioners to be part of this process, we've never been excluded. They want us there, but we've never been invited either. But we can join the stakeholder process now as they move forward to this process. I would like to see Commissioner King and Rich, a presentation on this, on more specifics to the committee in July. There's no reason not to, with things starting to move toward 26 pretty fast. We need to see this, to Commissioner Deerhake's point. And I also think that because we've had such a long and I think positive stakeholder process, we have to adopt the rule, not the department, not Upper News Basin. So I think to involve us in where there's friction or ties or something that could happen, we're going to have to come up with our own end game anyway. So it would be better to either defer those controversies to us or let us be part of helping y'all resolve them, because ultimately we have to pass this rule as a commission. So all those things to address. My concern is yours, is there's a lot of stuff mounting up in these falls rules. So
Just a thought, though, real quick.
Yes, Commissioner King.
You mentioned agriculture, you mentioned hearings, RIA, cost benefits. We're looking at that with other items in water quality. So, we want to know if it's going to be in or out. And those might have something to do with the RA moving forward. Is ag going to be a player? If they are, they are. If they're not, but the benefit, cost benefit, health benefits, whatever, all that needs to be played into this moving forward, and not wait until the end to get that decision.
Correct.
And move right
Correct.
now.
So Rich, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Smith, you're moving toward the mic.
I guess a quick comment. I guess having had experience with a lot of these types of processes before, I think it's helpful for the staff and the stakeholders to resolve as many issues as they can. And that does not mean every issue is going to be resolved before it comes to the committee or to the commission. And that's fine. That's right. The purpose of the committee and the commission. I would hesitate to insert the commission into those stakeholder discussions. I think it is better to let that run its course, see how much they can resolve. We will have an opportunity to deal with those issues when they come to the committee and then the full EMC. And as today's conversation just reinforces, these are very complicated issues. A lot of interaction between things. It sounds like some of the direction the staff is already headed in takes adaptive management into consideration, with the agricultural standards being one of those. But in this kind of rulemaking, there are always going to be trade-offs. And the fact that the wastewater systems are not going to meet their phase 2 goals means you're looking broader at other inputs.
Not to correct you, but I think they've determined that they don't need to meet their phase 2, and their phase 2 are not attainable by the way they set them. So I don't think they don't intend to not meet them. They can't meet them.
I'm not saying they decided not to. I'm saying if what we're hearing is they are not attainable, that means they are not going to be attained. And those were built into the assumptions around the original nutrient management strategy. So if that changes, then there are other places we need to look at the whole strategy and see if there are other adjustments that need to be made. And the bottom line is, adaptive management makes a lot of sense. And I think that is being built into this process. But the bottom line is, at a minimum, we have to have the standards in place to maintain the progress that we've made to maintain the water quality, not have any backsliding. And it's clear that in some of these sectors, we're not going to achieve the goal that was originally set. So it's going to be a complicated discussion. I would recommend letting the stakeholders do their thing and see how much everyone can reach agreement on, then come to the committee with the best product that the staff's been able to put together and have the committee take it from there.
Understood. We'll look at it. Okay. Any other comments? Rich, thank you. I appreciate this. We're ready and available to receive whatever you can give us in advance and get us prepared for what I think everybody realizes will be a very complicated discussion. We have High Rock Lake coming too, guys. So I think next time you may come and talk about High Rock Lake, which is it's not getting better at High Rock Lake. It may be the same or worse. So it's a different set of protocols, but there have been multiple stakeholder groups working for 5 or 6 years to try to come up with solutions on High Rock. So we need to be briefed on that too. So, but thank you today, Rich. Very helpful, very insightful.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes information items, and I would like to go around and get director's comments. We will be brief today. I know these were not on the website. I know y'all have had a lot of other things to do, but I will remind you, I like to keep these brief at this point in the day, but also because I'd rather see them in writing on the website so the public can have access to them equally so, because this is some heavy stuff. But Director Scott, I don't see Toby here, but Director Scott, if you'll go first and give us some of the highlights. I think we have handouts. They weren't on the website, but the commission has handouts and of the comments, and I think the public can go to the website. If not today, now they can go at the end of the day and get those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Toby left me his comments. He needed to cover in another meeting, so I'll read them very quick in Toby fashion.
Okay.
On behalf of the Dam Safety Program, Demler has worked with his consultant in development of an updated statewide probable maximum precipitation study, which has been under development since the spring of 2024. The tool and its applicability were presented at the Water Allocation Committee yesterday, and use and application presentations to other state and local government agencies are planned over the next 2 months. The stormwater program update, Demler staff have been working with the Information Technology Program and DEQ in developing our Access DEQ conversion from Laserfish for the NPDES construction stormwater application and compliance processes. This new standalone system will go live next week, so I know Demler's really excited about this. And at that time, their business unit and information technology group will begin work to further streamline the approval and permit coverage process between sedimentation and erosion control and NPDES construction stormwater by combining those processes into a singular application process for applicants to receive both permitting actions as a result. And rollout for that combined process is planned for fall of 2025. And the last item for Demler, the Dam Safety Rules Readoption Stakeholder Group is going well with representation by owners, design engineers, representatives from the agriculture industry, utilities, conservation interest, the EMC, and dam safety staff. There have been 3 meetings so far, and they're receiving great participation, comments, and suggestions by all members on the dam safety rule readoption front. So that's it for the Demler update.
Director Vincent was kind enough to make an offer if we wanted to join some of those meetings virtually, and with his experience, Commissioner Yarborough has made a few of those. I think, Commissioner Yarborough, is that correct? So thank you for.
Had one yesterday, which I was here.
Thank you for listening in on those. We appreciate it. Director Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few updates for waste management. On the Helene theme, just want to continue to thank especially our solid waste program staff for all of their work on temporary disaster debris sites. We still have over 135 of these in North Carolina. We're still approving new debris sites as waterway debris, private property debris removal really ramps up, as some of the discussions have touched on today. We've also been actively working on our UST bridge loan program. The General Assembly dedicated $22 million for North Carolina's impacted gas stations and the Helene impacted areas to replace gasoline dispensers, do pipe pipe testing, really try to help these facilities get back on their feet. That's been a new program for us, meaning loaning money out to gas station operators. And so it's been a great endeavor and a great team working on that front. Along that same theme, thank you to Jessica and the rest of the team. We have moved forward temporary rules. The General Assembly asked the department to draft temporary rules for this bridge loan program. Like I said, something very new for us being in the loan business from the waste management perspective. Those became effective on April 8th, and we're now in the permanent rulemaking process. These rules won't be before the commission. We're directed as the department to put these rules forth. And also on the rulemaking front, the utility scale solar decommissioning rule set became effective April 1st. That's another brand new program for the division, utility scale solar, and the requirements really come into effect fall of 2025. So a lot going on that front. Appreciate the great information updates yesterday on the expanded well sampling related to Comores, also the landfill presentation that Deputy Director Ulishny gave to the Groundwater and Waste Management Committee. A lot of great teamwork on that front. And the last item, obviously we're tracking a lot of bills that we just wanted to briefly mention to the commission at the General Assembly. Variety of subjects here. There's been a lot of discussion related to brownfields, Senate Bill 387, a lot of different stakeholder input on that front. We've got some solid waste language in House Bill 873 we're watching, and one more example, scrap tires in Senate Bill 706. So obviously the legislative long session, obviously a lot of bills have been filed, and these are just a few that pertain to our division. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Director Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yeah, real quick, I was looking at my screen. You mentioned something was not going to be coming before us for rulemaking, and I didn't pick up what that was. What is that again?
Yes, I was sharing 2 rulemaking updates. The General Assembly asked us to implement the Helene Underground Storage Tank Bridge Loan Program.
Oh.
So those are department rules, but also utility scale solar, which we have mentioned to the commission before. The General Assembly also directed DEQ to draft those rules and approve them, meaning the secretary.
Those are temporary rules, right?
Those are final rules.
Those are final rules. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions for Director Scott? Okay, thank you very much. Director Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Comments I made in writing will cover most things. I do want to point out in our comments, we've listed the public notice of NPDES permits. You'll see there's quite a few there, but just to let you know, not all these go out for public hearing. All of these are things that we've been working on in permits we've been processing wanted to provide you that update as well. Also, regarding commission late, I guess a little earlier this week, we sent out an email to commission members with the information for this meeting, the commission meeting, all the attachments and materials. We will be doing that on a regular basis now if you just need easier access and have trouble with Laserfish sometimes. So we'll be providing that to the commission members as we move forward. One thing to note is that will not be updated. Sometimes at the last minute, a few things get updated or added. This week, we added a letter to the Water Quality Committee, so those will not get updated after we send those out to you through email. It's State Employee Appreciation Week, so I want to just do a shout out to all the employees in DWR. We appreciate the work, not only those that y'all get to face and meet and greet and work with, but also the entire division and the work that we do. Vacancy rate in DWR, we are down below 10% now, so we continue to work and work those numbers down. And it is very much a benefit to us. Again, the permit fees that were raised in the past and support from the legislature has helped us meet those targets and also better retain employees so that we don't have a whole lot of turnover. One last thing, and I want to just take a point of personal privilege and on behalf of the division, thank Commissioner Deerhake for her service to the commission. She's been here for more than 25 years, I believe, off and on, but she has been a real stalwart and a great person and commissioner to work with. She's worked on the Jordan Lake and Tarpam nutrient rules. One of the things I love the most is creating basin liaisons, which I think is a great way to make sure our commissioners get down on the ground and get engaged in the activities that are going on in those basins. I also supported us in the Greensboro SOC, which is, I think, a wonderful, wonderful product that has proved very beneficial to us as well, and one that I personally have felt her support and pressure is on the E. coli standard, which we are moving forward with, and we certainly appreciate her persistence on that. So thank you for your service to this commission as well, to the public in general. We certainly appreciate it.
Any questions for Director Rogers? Are you about to ask a question, Commissioner Ellison?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. I just didn't know you looked at it like you had something else to say, but.
No. Excuse me. Thank you for this update on getting water and to these many communities.
Yes, sir.
That have been shredded. And I'd appreciate it if you could keep doing this, give us updates as they come along.
Yes, be glad to.
So you've got a lot of temporary facilities going in. And I know that it's real early. There's a lot of work that has to get done, but I would appreciate some updates on the timelines of how some of these communities are moving toward permanent solutions.
Yes, I think we can do that. And what we're doing is just adapting the weekly report we provide to the Secretary and the Governor's office on that. So we keep good track on that. And I think that's a great point about permanent solutions and timelines.
Yeah, thank you.
We're glad to do that.
Thank you, Director Rogers. Thank you. Director Abrazinskis.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. So there's two meaningful occasions to celebrate this week. First, the aforementioned State Employee Appreciation Week. So I too want to say thank you to all of our DAQ staff for their hard work and public service. The second, it is also National Air Quality Awareness Week. This is something that US EPA designates May 5th through the 9th every year. The theme this year is Stay Air Aware. As such, the governor proclaimed May 5th through 9th as Air Quality Awareness Week here in North Carolina. In that proclamation, it recognizes a couple very important statistics and streaks we've got going here in North Carolina. First, today is the 3,545th consecutive day of North Carolina meeting and attaining all federal health-based air quality standards. That's great for public health and our economy. The second thing I wanted to note is the combined emissions of hazardous air pollutants and toxic air pollutants have declined by more than 100 million pounds, or 79% drop over the last 3 decades. That's an amazing statistic. The third is the visibility in our mountains has improved on our haziest days by 37 to 49 miles. And that's one of the reasons why we go to the mountains, because we don't want to just see the nearest range. We want to see the one beyond that, one beyond that. So those are some great things to celebrate here this week. I'll close today with another quick word of thanks to Commissioner Deerhake for her many years of service on this commission. You know, in 2007, I got my first supervisory job in DAQ, and that was to be the rules supervisor. And in that role, I was taking over for Tom Allen, who had been in the role for 38 years. Okay, since day one of the rule book being created, when the rule book was 1 page and it was the open burning rule, and he took it from 1 page to the 300 and so many rules that Joelle told you about today. And then, so those are some big shoes for me to fill, but Commissioner Deerhake was the chair of the Air Quality Committee at that time. So I want to thank her for her patience with me, for a young buck filling in for Tom Allen with 38 years of experience. I learned a lot while in that role. Still learning a lot here today as well. But we had some very difficult rulemakings that we went through during those couple of years back then, but all of which support the amazing success that I just mentioned. North Carolinians are breathing the cleanest air of their lifetimes today. So like I tell our staff when they retire, you've done a lot of good. And thank you for your many years of service to this board. That's all for today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Director Abrazinskis. Any questions? Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, hearing none, let's start with the Ys. You guys get overlooked. Let's come around this way today. Commissioner Yarborough, any additional comments as we go around the horn here? And
No, just a fear factor on my part when I start hearing about nutrient management, because I was involved in that. But on the ground side, as a young agronomist trying to figure out what the rules were. So I do hope that there are some stakeholders that will participate very closely and make sure that we don't have to try to fight those things to where it's about impossible to deal with. So that's a fear factor on mine. The other thing I was going to congratulate Miss Deerhake. I can't imagine 25 years on this commission. So that's just a comment, but I think that is a real civil servant that can do that. So she's always had her homework done, and that's a good thing. So you taught me a lot, and unbelievable civil servant.
very good. Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, Chair Solomon. The Water Allocation Committee had 4 information items yesterday, 2 updates, one on the IBTs that are somewhere in the hopper, and the basin-wide Water Resources Management Program. We had those for updates. And we had a fine presentation from Klaus Alberton on drought and the Drought Management Advisory Committee and their work and how that goes together. And I think we also inherited a great presentation from Dr. Hadush Hagos on that dam safety program that Demler has been working on. So very interesting presentations. I also want to thank Maya Holcomb for her prompt response to the chairman's request that the IBT information on the website be updated and clarified so that it is hopefully more helpful to the public and stakeholders who want to take a look at that. So we met. I'm going to miss Ms. Deerhake's participation on this committee when I was defending decisions that the department had made years ago, and the EMC made the final decision, not OAH. I always appreciated her attention to those matters and asking very good and helpful questions at that time. So just wanted to say thank you so much.
Mr. Tweedy.
Just continued thanks and appreciation to the staff. I didn't know we were going to be making remarks on Marion Deerhake today, but if this is the last opportunity, I would like to say thank you for helping me out. She's been a great resource to me for history on subjects, how the commission works, great for talking ideas. So I'll definitely miss that going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Tweedy. Commissioner Smith.
So one thing, a process issue I wanted to mention today. I know yesterday in the Water Quality Committee meeting, Commissioner Keene mentioned the subcommittee that had been working on the 1,4 doxane and the PFAS rules and identified the members of that subcommittee, which raised 2 immediate concerns. One is if there is going to be a subcommittee of the commission working on a set of rules, I think the commission as a whole needs to know that at the beginning and not at the end. But the other question it raised, and I think this may be something we should get some legal advice on, is whether open meetings law applies to those meetings.
Correct.
Open meetings statute does not limit itself to the commission and its standing committees. It also applies to ad hoc committees and special committees and task forces and a number of other things. So I think we need to be very transparent about what's going on in our rulemaking process. Transparency beginning at least with the other commission members knowing what's going on, but also the public to the extent open meetings law applies to those meetings. So,
correct.
And again, thank you, Marion, and to adapt the Mark Twain quote, "The rumors of her death have been greatly exaggerated." She is still with us, and she may still.
And she'll probably be back to
She
talk
may
about
still
something
be
else in
with
the
us
future.
in June if her replacement has not been named. I guess that's up to her. But we've certainly enjoyed working with Marion.
Yeah, and just go back to just a quick, we'll look at the legal stuff too. We heard that, but on process, we did not name an official subcommittee. And I have corrected Commissioner Keene. I won't correct him in public, but his habit is to call everything a subcommittee. We've got the chair, the vice chair, and then I told him that if he wanted to bring somebody else along, if the vice chair could not come, that Commissioner Bumgarner would be there. I don't think we ever named an official committee. I don't think the subcommittee did. But anyway, we will look into your concerns, and our council can do that based on what you just said. Commissioner Reardon.
Okay, I'll be brief, but congratulations, Commissioner DeHake, for 25 years of service, I think you said. And I'm like Bill, I'm telling you, that's got to be a yeoful effort over many, many years. But my sympathies and appreciation at the same time. And I really appreciate the department's commitment and the summary we got in the director's report regarding the work that's been done on the emergency response issues in the western part of the state. I can't overemphasize the importance of that. And Commissioner Yarborough, I want to publicly thank you for the work that you've done in that area, your presentation this week and your participation on the Haywood County Soil and Water and representing your community up there. And again, thank all the department employees for what you do every day for the benefit of the citizens of this state.
Mr. Larley.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I did want to mention a couple things. Again, I wanted to really shout out to the directors, Abrazinskis and Scott, for their presentations and their work on the committees. I thought they were really excellent. It's been a real pleasure. Chair Carter has been very supportive of my role as a vice chair in the Air Quality Committee, and it's taught me a lot, and I think I've really appreciated that. I've also really enjoyed, the conversations and the input from the various perspectives that have been brought. I did want to sort of remark about the health effects of the environment that are emerging. And from the biological perspective, there's an emerging appreciation that all of us as humans are giant populations of mutant cells that continue to expand during our lifetimes. And there's clonal expansions during brief periods of time, perhaps puberty, early development, and so forth. And so the overall goal of looking at health effects of the environment may have to appreciate the genetic susceptibility, various populations at high risk, and so forth going forward. And so with that in mind, again, I wanted to make sure that if there are opportunities to bring in more of the health effects of some of the environment, perhaps there's emerging data, perhaps it's not definitive, but I think an appreciation of the potential for susceptible populations might be something to sort of consider going forward through myself or others on the committee or the expertise that is brought on. And then finally, I do want to, recognize Commissioner Deerhake as somebody who joined the committee and used her as an individual that brought a perspective, I think an art of thoughtful and constructive discussion. It was really a pleasure to work with you and to learn from you and to really want to express my appreciation on my personal behalf, but on behalf of the citizens of the state of North Carolina for your many efforts on their behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. King.
Thank you, Chair Solomon. I thank you very much for starting out the meeting with yesterday's meeting at Water Quality and going over the PFAS interest of the public and 1.4 with stakeholders. I have no other report other than just a comment in reference to your leadership since January of last year. And coming to me and appointing me as chair of water quality, as important as it was. And you asked me, was I committed and did I have time for it? Because it was big. And I said, not without your help and without the department's help. I cannot do this by myself. Moving from groundwater and waste management over about 10 or 11 years, coming over to water quality was a huge challenge for me. You know, speaking of Commissioner Smith comment about me yesterday and saying it was a committee or subcommittee, I must apologize to the public if I said subcommittee because it's never been a subcommittee, as you know. And as the Director Rogers knows, it's a study group that was put together at his request, asking me to participate. And I asked Chair Solomon, okay, I'm going to participate, but how do you want me to participate? He said, I want you to, you said, listen and learn and just learn. And the department has done a really good job. It helped me learn, as we did with the nitrogen piece with years ago when you and I sat after I became a member in 10. So I want to make sure that the people that are watching and listening and here and the staff, that you understand you have a chair on the Water Quality Committee that has no agenda other than to get it right and be transparent and make sure that the big picture and the journey is complete without running aground. I have a good vice chair. And if something happens to me, which has happened in health-wise over the last 12 months, I want him to be able to step in because it still puts the committee on solid ground. Now, these NAV aids, as we're working through this journey, a good aid is groundwater. And when Commissioner Reardon was chair and then Commissioner Baumgartner being chair, then I asked Commissioner Baumgartner because of groundwater and waste management, because of the reports we were getting on waste management, groundwater and leakage in landfills being added, that it made sense to bring these three commissioners to the gate, put them on board, and move forward. That's what we're doing. We are framing up something that all the stakeholders are part of, Mr. Chairman, and the committee. And I want to take this time to make sure that the public understands that we want to get this PFAS and PFOS issue out to the public. The General Assembly has it on their table, and we have it on ours. But again, nothing behind the table. It's you asked me to serve in this position. I've done the best I could, and I'll continue to do that as long as I'm chair of the Water Quality Committee. But it's not paid position. It's all volunteered. Some of us, not me, but some of us have jobs, and when you call from 8 to 5, you're on their dime. And I understand that, but the committee members that we have, I can call them at any time. And if they do, they can pick up and we can discuss. But Director Rogers and I have had a really good relationship since I've been in this chair. And there's a lot of things that I pick up the phone and discuss with him one-on-one and get direction from him. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I want to thank you too, because I know you, when the water quality had these issues and even nutrients coming back, I asked you to step in, not because of your technical expertise, because of your, you've been a constituent service person in an occupation, and you've also been a county commissioner, and you've also been a businessman. So you know a lot about the community. In fact, people didn't realize that you were on the aging or the money thing when you start doing those things you did earlier about aging people. You do have, behavioral health. Nobody knew you had another commission just like this that you worked for. So we were all, where to get those numbers from, but it was pretty impressive. But anyway, thank you. And Commissioner Duggan, I'm going to go ahead and go to you and then jump over to Commissioner Ellison.
I just would like to thank the department and staff, as usual, for all your hard work that you put in for all these meetings. I know sometimes it can look like the fingers are pointed at you, but we do appreciate all the work you do for not only the commission, but for the citizens of the state. So thank you. And as always, Paula and Lois, thank you for all you do, keeping me in line and keeping this commission in line. My fellow commissioners, I echo Commissioner Reardon's comments as to the thanks to Commissioner Yarborough for all the work you're doing for the citizens out west and for the citizens of this state. So thank you for that. Commissioner Deerheck, thank you. When I came on, I was little bit lost coming onto this commission, and you were one of the first ones to reach out to me, and I appreciate that. You have set a extremely high bar for a commissioner sitting on this commission. Your preparation and your advocacy is unparalleled. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best going forward in whatever you do. And if you'd like to come back on, that's okay too. So, but that's all the comments I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ellison.
Quickly to supplement what Commissioner Keene said, the committee asked, I believe it was in the November meeting, asked the department to reach out to stakeholders. And there, he did use the term subcommittee, but that's not what he meant. It was a working group, or whatever you want to call it, that the department pulled together, speaking with various stakeholder groups, and sometimes some of the committee members were on those calls. And I heard very positive feedback. Stakeholders at the beginning of these meetings were very appreciative of the opportunity to interact with the department and in the construct of the PFAS rules. And I believe that procedurally, I don't know, there might be some questions, but I believe in terms of serving the people of North Carolina, either indirectly through POTWs and pretreatment consortia and things like that, it was a good thing, and I believe it helped the department come up with much better drafts of the rules. So there was great value in that. And I got to jump on the bandwagon, and I'm just going to take Commissioner Reardon's word, thoughtful. And I think when I first got on the commission a few months later, we got a Christmas card at our house. And my wife is like, who is Marion Deerhake? I said, she's this really nice lady that I sit next to at the EMC meetings. And I think that the thoughtfulness is very grounding for the rest of us. We've all got different backgrounds. We've all got different ideas. And you think things through and bring us a very strong, well thought out perspective, and I appreciate it.
I asked Chairman Solomon yesterday if I could take a minute or two to say some thank yous, and so I appreciate this. Words can't express what an honor it has been to serve on this commission. I'm grateful for the opportunity and trust which I've been given for what I estimate is 26 years. And to have a role in protecting our state's environment and public health has been a wonderfully meaningful experience to me. I have to begin by thanking Senator Dan Blue, who, as Speaker of the House, first appointed me in 1993 for a 2-year term. And after a 2-year absence, I proceeded to have appointments from Governor Jim Hunt, Mike Easley, Beverly Eves Perdue, and then later Roy Cooper. I thank them so much for their trust and appointments. Dr. David Moreau was an exceptional chairman and mentor during my service. Chair Stephen Smith and Stan Myberg brought wisdom, experience, and leadership to this body. And when Governor Cooper named Commissioner Robin Smith as chair, I was so proud to witness the first woman, to my knowledge, to lead this commission. In total, though, I estimate only 11 women have served on this commission during my 26 years. So I hope women's participation will continue to grow. I've also been fortunate to volunteer on the commission during tenures of a number of secretaries, including Bill Holman, Dee Freeman, and Bill Ross, and the ones we have today. And they each championed essential policies and programs dealing with wetlands protection, nutrient management, which we've heard about today, and clean air programs such as the Clean Smokestacks Act implementation. And of course, the DEQ staff members are at the heart of this department. The EMC depends on them for data analysis and administrative support needed for this body to make informed decisions. They deserve our respect and thanks. It has been a privilege to work with air quality directors Alan Klimick, Keith Overcash, Sheila Holman, and now Michael Abrazinskas, and water quality directors Danny Smith and Richard Rogers during my years as committee chairs for both of those, as well as a sincere thanks to Assistant Secretary Sushma Mazemore for her tireless efforts. I'm also very grateful to Chair Solomon for supporting my idea to have EMC members serve as river basin liaisons to staff and public. I had introduced the idea a few years back, but he was the one who jumped on board and supported me all the way through that. And I hope you all see the value in getting to know our state's basins and the residents better. EMC councils Frank Crawley, Philip Reynolds, and Ellie Young, among others, such as Commissioner Weiss, who would sometimes sit in as a council, have been invaluable on regulatory development, petitions, contested cases, remissions, and consent agreements, and I'm grateful for their legal counsel. I sincerely thank the people of North Carolina, from the stakeholders of the environment, local government, industry, and agriculture, to the residents who to this day strive to have their voices heard, to protect, preserve, and improve the quality of life in North Carolina and their health and the environment. Back in 1993, I prepared a list of personal objectives that I would use on the EMC. And I've held on to those all these years. It's pretty worn out, but I do still have it. It might be carbon dated. These are still timely and relevant, I think, and I would like to just highlight some of them to you. Develop quality regulations. Develop regulations from a multimedia perspective. Improve public outreach. Seek technically and economically feasible solutions. And last but most important, in my opinion, address children's health in every aspect of the work that we do. So, in closing, the father of North Carolina's first Congresswoman, Jane Pratt, elected in 1946, he was a farmer and a merchant in rural North Carolina. And she said he used to tell her as a child in the early 1900s that he had two loves, the good earth and a good education. I hope today's North Carolinians will also value our land, water, and air, and understand the importance of educating current and future generations about the importance of preserving and protecting these essential resources at all scales, from our local watersheds and airsheds to globally. So thank you for allowing me to take a few extra minutes for these comments, and my best wishes to everyone. Thank you.
Well, Commissioner Carter, it's going to be a hard act to follow.
Hang on a second. I'm having a problem.
I may be sending you a sign from above.
I guess they don't want me speaking today. Let me just quickly say there's really nothing. I can't add anything much to other than just to say it really has been a privilege for quite a few years here, because I got here actually in '93 when you came on the commission and worked essentially from the outside when you were running the committee, and then worked with you here on both on air and water quality. And it has been a pleasure. You brought a lot to it, and really want to thank you for that. Then real quick and briefly on the committee business from yesterday. For those of you who are here, I know you heard Bill Yarborough's presentation on the issues they're running into in Western North Carolina. I'm sure we're going to hear more about that, and I want to really thank him for bringing that and bringing a lot of that to our attention. There's a lot of work to be done there. The one item I thought we were going to be bringing more quickly to the commission in July are the pre-permitting rules that we've been dealing with now for over 6 months, I guess. Unfortunately, we found out yesterday that the RIA supporting those draft rules needs some further adjustment. It just needed some further adjustment. It's not I don't think it's a big problem, but it wasn't ready to bring those rules in the RA to the commission this time. So we're going to be looking at that revised RIA in July now at the Air Quality Committee. And I may come back to the chair and suggest that we waive the 60-day rule to bring the rules to the commission at the July full commission meeting. But we'll see. It'll depend on what we look at at AQC. But I don't anticipate any significant problems with that. And the other point to make is simply that what we're trying to do here, if you haven't followed this at all, is we're trying to get into rule something that the legislature, in its wisdom or lack thereof, wrote explicitly into the statute. And that's created a problem because we have a prohibition in the Administrative Procedure Act from adopting into rules statutes. And so we're trying to work through that issue. And that's actually the other part of it. Our councils is we're trying to get an early or pre-review, I guess, out of them to see if they are going to find it acceptable, because if they're not going to find it acceptable, there's no point in going forward with it either. That's the other question that we'll have to deal with in July. So, but hopefully we can work something with them and the RA will be fixed and we'll be back to you then. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Montgomery.
Oh, I get to wrap it up, huh?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Deerhake, it's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you for your service. The committee meeting for groundwater and waste management yesterday, we had 2 information items, one being update on solid waste landfill PFAS data. Director Rogers talked a little bit about that earlier, so I won't belabor it. And we also had a information item, an update on the expanded private drinking water sampling going on from the 2019 consent order from Chemours. Both topics were very interesting, good discussion in the committee. I think we all learned a lot and had a chance to engage. Other than that, Director Rogers, thank you for providing an alternative to the abysmal piece of whatever that Laserfish is. Sorry, never liked that software, but it is. I spent an hour and a half last Sunday trying to download files, so I appreciate some alternatives very much. Thank y'all, and that's it.
Mr. Baumgartner, let's go to council. Should have a couple brief comments and any other comments you have.
Thank you. Just a couple of litigation updates from the Attorney General's office. The first is related to Department of Environmental Quality versus the North Carolina Farm Bureau Federation. If you will recall, that case was brought by the Farm Bureau Federation challenging 3 conditions in a general permit related to using certain animal waste systems. That case has been through the trial court as well as the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals held that the three conditions in the general permit were invalid because they were not adopted through the rulemaking process. That case was just argued in front of the North Carolina Supreme Court on April 23rd, so we are awaiting a final decision on that case, and I will let you know once we have a decision. The other case is Department of Environmental Quality versus City of Asheboro, City of Greensboro, and City of Reedsville. This is the case where the municipalities challenged the limits in their NPDES permit to 1,4-dioxane. In the Office of Administrative Hearings, the ALJ ruled in favor of the municipalities, struck the limit on 1,4-dioxane from the NPDES permit, and in the process held that this commission's rule 2B0208 is not enforceable. The Department of Environmental Quality has filed a petition for judicial review in the Wake County Superior Court. The respondents, the municipalities, have filed a motion to dismiss that petition for judicial review. The DEQ and the municipalities have requested a hearing on that motion to dismiss the first week of June. We don't yet have a hearing date, but there may be an update for that in the July meeting. So if there's any questions on that.
On the first one, the decision that the provisions in the general permit were not valid because they weren't adopted by ruling, is that new or different? Our general permit, I don't think I recall general permits going through rulemaking particularly.
That is new.
Okay, that's what I thought, so I just wanted to, sure, okay.
Yep. And then finally, I also want to echo my thanks to Commissioner Deerhake, and I want to extend the thank you from the folks in my office as well particularly Philip, who says, "Don't be a stranger." So thank you very much for all your service.
That's me. So I'll jump on the bandwagon. I'll say three things about Marion I remember. One's going to be something nobody's mentioned yet. But the first is you're always prepared. And over the years, it's several terms as chairman, a couple terms, I've always put you in some hot spots because I knew you'd be prepared. So that's the one thing. The two thing I would do is the river basins. We really got behind that 7 or 8 years ago, and it lives. And so I think that'll carry on. And then the third thing I would say is the sedimentation and erosion control board. I don't think we thank you enough for that, but she served on that for many years now, I guess, several years. And if
We meet tomorrow.
and it's taken the leadership role. We have a position as the EMC there. She's always jumped up and grabbed that and served diligently. So I'll remember that because you have served very diligently there too. So those are my three things. Bigger than that though, not bigger than that, but equal to that is, this is the time where we get reappointed. And I think there's as many as 7 seats maybe up. And so I'd like to say that we're all coming back. I would look at it more positively, say we're going to probably get a couple new people, not just Marion's seat, but we'll get some new people. And over the years, I think we'll all say that have been around. Sometimes there's not perfect rhyme or reason with who comes in and who doesn't and all that stuff. So I want to thank all the commissioners. We all serve a lot of heavy roles. We all do a lot of heavy work. It is a very, very thankless and broad board. And I really tried to, I think we all have to, kind of the esprit de corps in a way. Sometimes I get frustrated because we kind of fracture sometimes, but we really are united by that as we come and we go on this commission. But this commission always has a very, very broad and deep scope that we're asked to really, really challenge ourselves to rise up and meet. And we have a lot of expectations from the public and the different agencies to do our job. So I want to thank each of you for what you do. We will find out in a month and a half if we have new members or not, and who that'll be. And, the work will go on, regardless of which ones of us are here or who's at it. So I just want to thank y'all for that. The last comment I'll make is, Ellison, you won today, and we're having pizza for lunch. So I've strung it out a little bit longer. You've talked about pizza several times, and the department has made sure you have pizza today, or we all have pizza today. So
They're just trying to make me quit whining.
with that, guys, we're adjourned. Thank you.